a Garchomp, $300, and a niche Pokemon Nuzlocke playthrough. These three things came together to create a competitive format like no other, the Spizzle 1000. Grab a snack, dim your spider-infested LED lights down low, and get comfortable because in this video, I'm not only going to be showcasing this competitive format I've designed, but the 128-person tournament I hosted with it, going over not just the battles, but the meta, the memes, and the story of how this all came to be. Night begins to shine. The night begins to shine. Oh, yeah, because I'm goated. Here are some timestamps since I'm known to yap. If you want to skip to the rules and or the battles themselves, here's what you need. But if I were you, I'd stick around because the story is just as heat as the tourney itself. And I put a lot of love and work into not only showcasing this tournament as, well, a tournament, but a cohesive storyline so you can feel like you were right alongside us as it happened. So first things first, I gotta come clean. I've made this video before. This is actually a sequel video to when I hosted the previous iteration of this tournament, the Spizzle 500. So what's the difference? Let me catch you up to speed because first we have to explain the rules of my Nuzlocke series as it determines how the tourney is played. Let me explain. The Spizzlelocke is a series where I play every single game in a row without repeating Pokemon, meaning I only get one Pidgey, one Pikachu, and etc. Once a Pokemon is used in battle, that's it. It's either coming with me to the next games, dying, or being left behind. There's a few other rules, but they're not really important for this video. And before I get angry comments, yes, I did not invent this idea of how the game is played, but not only is my full rule set original, so I can really name it whatever I want, the Spizzlelocke is less of a Pokemon Challenges type series and more of a Jaden Animations project, to put it in Poketuber terms. It's my send-off and love letter to vanilla Pokemon games. Now, the Spizzle 500 was my 500 subscriber special, where the only Pokemon allowed in battle for this tournament were Pokemon I used in the Gens 1 through 3 games. Now that I'd finished Gen 4 though, we had over doubled the original roster, and it was time to host the next event. Last time I advertised $100 if we got 32 participants, but we barely scraped by with 16. And even then, some of them dropped out. I wanted to make sure I hit my goals this time as to make a banger video. So, in the Spizzle 500 video, I advertised $150 to the winner if we got 32 participants. And I posted it. And this is where our story truly begins. Imagine this. I'm at like 1K subs and telling my small tight-knit community that daddy was going on hiatus for a vacation, but posting the tourney we all played together while I was away to give him something to watch. Little did I know that in a matter of days, this video would go bananas. This changed everything. My first thought was, finally, my Joe Biden and Trump play Bed Wars AI video won't be topping the charts anymore. But my second thought was, how am I gonna handle all these new people? Thankfully, my mod team was on it. Together, we quickly did all we could to spruce up the server, give it the safety precautions it needed, and of course, set the application for himself. Now, I won't drone on too long on every detail of this story, but what you gotta know is this video changed my life, and to everyone watching this who already saw the first video, I thank you. Now, the server was full of life, and hundreds of people were applying to get their spot in the tourney. Who knew how good of an incentive money could be? I got quite a few complaints from the last tourney vid that I yapped for far too long before the battles. I mean, to their credit, it was just over 9 minutes before we got to the first fight, but hey, I put timestamps here for a reason. Regardless, let's speed things along. I'll take my rocking chair off the porch and quit reminiscing all over y'all about the best week of my life and get to the meat and potatoes of the Spizzle 1000. But of course, we gotta talk about the two things that made this tournament special. Live and learn, hanging on the edge of tomorrow. Live and learn from the works of yesterday. This was the first tournament where we actually had a prize, and it was not chump change. Furthermore, Doopy, one of our esteemed hosts of the event, decided to pull a Tony Stark and double the prize pool of the tournament, since he wanted to make sure people who got top 8 also got prizes and not just first. Enticing? Because it sure was enough to get, holy shit, 189 people! Yeah, we gotta tweak the rules a bit. Alright, what did we have last time? 6v6, singles, Gen 4 format, appropriate nicknames, and only Pokemon used in Spizzlelocke from episodes 1 through 11. So let's update that to episode 16. And now to seal some holes we may have had in the last tournament's rule set, items clause for diversity, species clause for the same reason, and most importantly, the banning of the winning team of last tournament. This is because at the end of the day, this meta isn't really fair. This is a format I made up, and I don't want to get into philosophical debates on whether or not Femcell the Gastrodon should be banned. So I decided there will be no bans in the Spizzlelocke tourney meta, but the winner's team of the tournament is banned for the next one, and if a Pokemon wins 2 tournaments, it's permabanned. So for this tournament, nobody was allowed to use Raichu, Kabutops, Nidoqueen, Arcanine, and, hold for applause, Breloom and Wobbuffet. We also set it from anything goes to Ubers, just in case, because if I learned anything at all, as you may know, last tournament was all sorts of whack. Single elimination, random losers fighting each other for a spot in the quarterfinals. Yeah, it was definitely scuffed. This time around, we have a standard double elimination tournament, which just means if you lose at any point in the tournament, you go to the losers bracket where you can keep fighting for a chance to still win the whole thing. Also, once you reach the semifinals, all battles are a best of 3. To ensure people didn't come all this way to lose to bad RNG. Now that you know how the tournament works, let's check up on how our army of Spizzleyangs are preparing for the upcoming battles. With so many fighters and only one spot at the top, people were prepared to do whatever it takes to win, with a lot of people already making and playtesting teams with each other to try and determine some sort of cohesive meta. And since my team wanted to make sure these players were ready for the conditions of Gen 4 combat, Doopy once again stepped in and hosted a Gen 4 random battle tournament for preparation. So go check out that video when it drops. If it drops. Might drop. Raindrop. Drop top. I hate everything about you. With new people comes a new community, and this new tourney roster was already leaving a lasting impression. Besides just duking it out with each other, they were opening new channels for broader discussion, giving me video idea after video idea, and making a ton of fan art and memes of both me and the tournament video they had just watched. My community was changed forever, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There was a villain of this story, a terrifying dragon sealed away from standard play, now unleashed onto this fledgling, unbalanced meta, Garchomp. Or more so PNG Chomp, because for some reason Garchomp's Gen 4 back sprite did not load for the entirety of this tourney, so it literally just looks like this. This sparked a war on my server, as some people called for the banning of this terrifying land shark, while others said it really wasn't that much of a threat, and that if you use it, you're bad. This led to the war of the Mamochads versus Team Garchomp. But in all seriousness, Garchomp was a bit of a problem, for obvious reasons, and it quickly began to dominate the tourney before it even began, as after playtesting was done and teams were submitted, 75 out of the original 128 fighters had a Garchomp on their team. That's about 59% of all teams. But we're getting sidetracked here, so put the legends of PNG Garchomp in your back pocket, and let me go over real quick who made it back to this second tournament. Me, per usual, Clumsy, and Parker were back and better than ever, with both carefully analyzing the meta and building what they thought were the perfect teams. Except Clumsy decided to get a little experimental and throw a Bibarel on the squad. Pedro, the finalist of the last tournament. He ditched his Nidoqueen and set his sights higher, and he was determined to win what he thought was rightfully his. Benjamin, my bro was back at it again, and this time actually took his time with his team, crafting something still niche but thoughtful. Boblet Goblet, an OG community member ready to dust himself off and get back in the ring. Glinsai, an old YouTube friend of mine who's been dabbling in the Pokemon niche, go check him out. Poseidon, another OG community member and Spizzle's philanthropist. He is by far the most skilled player, and I have no doubts he will win the tournament. Totally not being paid to say this or anything. Eggbo. I don't know, he's Eggbo, he doesn't talk much. And finally, the returning champion, Muddle Puns. He had gotten much too busy to be active within the community, so I was stoked to hear he made some time to participate in this tournament and try and win it for the 2-time. Love you, man. Good luck. Now that I've glazed the OGs, you may think I'm going to go in and list a bunch of interesting critters that made it to this second rodeo, but I decided it's actually better off I let their teams, their memes, and their dreams speak for themselves. Also, I'm spending way too much time yapping again. I made it so you'll be able to pick up on important characters as they go, so let's not waste our breath. You've waited long enough, and I think it's time we finally, officially begin our tournament. Aritero Yumi wo Kaki Atsume. Starting off with our first battle of the tourney, Airbed versus V Squared. She opens with the terrifying Mamoswine as her lead, a Pokemon with a 26% usage rate thanks to its bulk, good damage, and rare access to Ice-type moves in order to counter the Chomp. And Airbed leads... Chingling? Okay, well, maybe Airbed's cooking something up. I see you with the focus sash. Okay, but genuinely, no hate to V, how did you lose half your team to this? This is some actual bullshit. Jokes aside, we were seeing some really cool teams and strategies being implemented, and if you really want to see some cool stuff, stick around for round 2. This round will definitely get you acclimated to the kind of tourney this is and the dynamics you'll see, as well as introduce you to a lot of important characters, but round 2 has, in my opinion, some of the coolest interactions in battle of the entire tourney. No glaze. I think it's time we move on to a fighter who never fails to give us a good show, Parker, against his opponent 2B-B. An incredible exchange of Crobat, a Farnisher pick at 8.6% usage, blocking Parker's Stealth Rock, but the retaliation of landing Steelix Gyro Ball into Electrode claps back hard. 2B sets Rain and Sax, and Salsa comes into Oko through Pasho Berry. Parker walls the Rain strats with Squidward the Tentacruel, and taking heavy damage in the process. 2B puts the Ruby Squid to sleep. After a couple more turns, 2B blocks Parker from setting up and mirror dances. 2B goes to Salsa, and Parker shows us the first Garchomp of the tourney, Willis. What was bro cooking? This was a neck-and-neck battle, with almost every turn having a notable interaction. Quandale comes back out to tank Fake Out, and Parker showcases to us a very interesting Ambipom tech, Fake Out and Last Resort. This was huge, because in this tournament, Ambipom was mainly seen as a Baton Pass user, due to its access to moves like Agility and Nasty Plot, but Parker had other ideas. Using Ambipom's base 100 attack and pairing that with Stab, Silk Scarf, Technician boosted Fake Out, it can do pretty big damage almost guaranteed on its first turn. Then, by stripping it of its last 2 moves and utilizing its base 115 speed, it can not only do massive damage, but usually chain it directly off of Fake Out, essentially combining the 2 moves into one big Giga attack. Crobat takes itself out after Brave Burning Squidward, Salsa finishes Squidward, and number 1 Garchomp counter by 1 use, Weavile finishes Salsa, and it's now a pretty much true 3v3. Lux CDK Oko Snonic and outspeeds Jack, not allowing it to use Last Resort shenanigans. Parker's Shenron gets taunted again, and Lux CDK takes itself out with Life Orb Recoil. Shenron dodges a Sleep Powder in order to secure the next KO, and it's Shenron versus Shenron. After trading a couple blows, Parker misses and is brought down to 1-hit range. That paired with having -1 attack, all hope seemed lost. But Parker, on the final turn possible, landed a freeze. Parker begins to spam D-Dance, and, well, as he put it, it's Dwan to lick now. A substitute is set, and freeze holds. 2 more K9s of ice, and the battle is won. Okay, that took way longer than expected. Oh god, there's so many battles. Let's touch on some notable square-ups, starting with the most flashy. A member on my server called ZlippyD decided to make a gimmick team for this tournament. A full-sun, chlorophyll-centered squad he called the Chlorophyters. And well, if you want to see how that went, I'll link the video he made about it in the description below. Spoilers! It's coming out! It's coming! But let's see what other cool moments were going down for our first round. UV Powers had a great and interesting looking team, but due to bad RNG, Pollen built quite a lead that was a bit too much to come back from. Robin Cars won her first battle only using 4 Pokemon, one of them being Wynot. You may think, wait, that's illegal. But no, I said Wobbuffet was banned. Pre-evolutions though? I decided that was okay. After all, Light Ball Pikachu shouldn't be banned just because Raichu was, and even though I thought nobody would use Prevos except for the occasional meme team, no, why not help lock Gyarados into D-Dance with an Encore and let Aurora the Dragonite absolutely rip and tear through most of the opposing team. But let's step back into the action with our returning champ Muddlepuns versus Darvnst, or Big Chungus IRL. Muddlepun destroys lead Machamp with a bold Shenron D-Dance lead, but Chungus retaliates to the violence with a supercharged counter, one-shotting. Muddlepun sends out Willis to finish Blissey off, and using a Yachi Berry rips right through the Mamochad, as well as Gyarados and Chungus's own Garchomp, before having the sweep halted by confusion. But at this point, the damage was already done. Muddlepuns proceeds to round 2. Next up, we have a battle of the OGs. Penjamin versus Poseidon, although some of you may know him better as Luminix. Penjamin seems to have come back with a much more meta team than last time, setting up Double Dance to take out Weavile, but falls to, I kid you not, the only Meganium in this entire tournament. You go, girl. Benjamin goes for the niche pick McCloud and sets 2 nasty plots, while Flora sets Light Screen and switches to Lobotomy the Slowking. They trade damage, but Ol C4 has to switch to Blissey. Donphan trades most of its health for some good value, but Benjamin's own Law finishes it off and sets Rocks. Lobotomy takes down Steelix, and it's Blaze the Espeon versus Flora. And Benjamin spams Calm Mind behind Substitute. With Flora unable to break through, in a panic, Poseidon goes to Willis. Blaze 2-hit KOs through Light Screen with about a third of health to spare. Blaze tanks the overheat and baton passes to an even lower HP McCloud, who gets hit with an overheat, activating Flash Fire, and crit Okos with Hidden Power. Flora falls to Rocks, and with 1 energy ball, the battle is settled. Benjamin advances to round 2. A quick buffer before our next OG fight, let's take a look at Sertina versus Zacynthius. The battle itself is pretty nice, but what really caught my eye was the fact they had 4 of the same Pokemon on their team, which may seem uninteresting considering the, lack of balance, to put it lightly, but it's the fact they had Roserade, Gyarados, Weezing, and Medicham. Now, obviously Roserade and Gyarados were common picks, but there were only 8 Weezings and 4 Medichams in the entire tournament, so really cool to see this kind of mirror match. Also, good job, Zacynthius. Togi versus Dreamsong was cool because despite Garchomp being the most common menace of the tourney, and there being limited ice types on the roster, there's only 1 Dugong and 1 Jinx in the entire tournament, and the Jinx was in this battle. I don't know, I thought that was cool. Did it do much? I mean, it put Dusclops to sleep, so GG Pokemon. Moving on, we got Josh M&S and Eden. Josh certainly was keeping the pressure strong on this battle, utilizing his D-Dance Shenron in the early game and taking out Sonic, a key threat to Garchomp. With the anti-Willis security disengaged, he whips out the strategy of Substitute, Swords Dance, and Outrage to go for the sweep. However, Eden walls this with Noodle. Josh goes for the retreat and makes a huge blunder as Eden sets up 2 nasty plots with Quandale, but it didn't really matter because Josh had the interesting choice of Scarf, Eruption, Typhlosion. After a long battle of stall, Willis finished things off and advanced Josh to the next round. Next up, we have Itay versus Mango. The battle begins and, is this how we're playing it? Yeah, with the options for Pokemon drastically increasing since last tournament, Stall has definitely gotten a bit more obnoxious to deal with, especially since Lucy the Blissey joined the fight. But the silver lining is the amount of rapid spinners also increased. Now, as we see here, Itay displays an incredible 6-0 battle by engaging in a Stall Fest against Ronaldo, and then pulling out to Shenron as the Quag eats its berry and poison stacks. Itay then sets up 2 D-Dances, and thanks to a lucky flinch and a Lumberry, Itay was able to tear his way to the second round. Dear God, we're only halfway done talking about round 1. Alright, I want to cover some highlights before I go over the final 2 battles of this round. Rosie Candle versus Skelm was a pretty cool fight because Skelm set up 2 D-Dances on lead with Aurora, but Jack took it down with just Fake Out and Double Hit. Not a common set to see in this meta. We then see Skelm use the niche pick of Lopunny to paralyze and get their get back, but Rosie pulls out another unpredictable move, Rock Smash, to take down Raven. However, Raven got off a switcheroo and left Jack locked onto one move with Choice Specs, a very interesting play. Skelm makes a misclick and Rosie goes to the only Vespiquen in the tourney, Taika, to dodge an EQ. Lobotomy comes out and they trade some damage, and Skelm uses Hildenzom, a very common pick of the OG tournament, to set up an agility baton pass into Willis. But Blaze was doing huge damage with Psychic. Skelm meets a Lychee Berry to boost attack, but puts it to no use when Future Sight connects and finishes it off. Skelm mirrors Blaze, misses Toxic, and falls to Shadow Ball. Lobotomy is down, and with that, Rosie took the 6-0 against her first opponent with 3 Pokemon. Using a Vespiquen, good shit. I thought this battle between Power the Power and Polygonized was funny because, like, nobody made their Pokemon shiny because technically it's against the rules, and this ugly ass Weavile scared me. Anyways, get clapped, shiny chud, moving on. Splitsy versus Truestorm. This battle was sick because not only did Truestorm lead with the ball explosion, but he also had one of the 2 Blossoms used in this tourney, and he used it to set Sun, letting Life put in huge value before being taken out. He also had one of the 2 Licky Lickies, and he inspired me to make this short. Which Pokemon would you think has the biggest explosion? He then cleans up late game with the niche pick of Nog the Executor, and I think this is the first instance of a Sun team actually winning a battle this tourney, so good for him. JustMichaelangelo versus Weredude. This battle was interesting because we got to see Explosion Nog and Memento Boston, but we also got to see Aaron put in some work. Did you pray today? Luke Soderbloom versus Moogsai. I gotta say on this one is Inosuke put in work. He pulled through like an early 2000s TN edit. Balrog versus DN Schmungus, and he leads with Grenade. He doesn't even use Sash Explosion or anything. He just literally threw that shit out to try and set rocks. Who are you, bro? Why do you have Cherrim? Get out of my tourney! And finally, Whack-A-Mo versus Player 1. They just had cool teams. I don't really know what else to say. Azure is cool. Only got 2 of those. Same with Goose. Ripjaw, Sonic. Those are pretty niche. Cool stuff. I mean, they tried Trick Room. Didn't really work, but... Now for the battles I saved for last. Tuna 007 versus Doopy. And Pedro versus Mushroom Fungus. Let's start with the Doopster. Before this tournament even began, he was being super secretive about a tech he discovered, and I was there to see it unfold. He leads with Pollen and gets mollywopped by Ice Punch. Pollen then eats a Patea Berry. This is it. Doopy's ultimate strategy. Why are you using Toxic Spikes, bro? Lock in! Okay, maybe Jack will take this back. Yeah, bro, you're cooked. All right, I'm seeing the vision with Shenron here.
Market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
Okay, now they're stalling. Why are they stalling? Yeah, it's so over. Wait. Come back? Is his rating fire?
Job's not finished.
Okay, 2v1s? No.
You can rest now.
That's what I'm talking about! Doopy advances to the next round. Hey, 007, sorry you got cooked, but I just want to say, the team is heat, my friend. And rounding things off, we return to the OG threat of the Spizzlelocke tournament, Pedro. The leads are Pollen versus Aaron, and thanks to Paralysis and Focus Sash, Pedro starts the battle off with 2 layers of spikes and sends out Law the Dawn Fan. Fungus makes a strange gamble to do Focus Punch while paralyzed, and it doesn't work out for him in the end. Fungus then sends out the only Dugong in the tourney, but unfortunately it shows us why only one person picked it. Fungus then uses Rest to try and heal up, but Pedro stacks some D-dances and Shenron blazes through it, as well as Arid the Pseudo-Widow and Cosmo the Kadabra? Cook and Jonah Hill. Weird team. Another sweep victory for Pedro, but honestly it was a bit predictable. I mean, this was not a common team, but I thought it was really cool to at least see some of these underappreciated mons. Phew, and just like that, round 1 has been concluded. How many more do we need to get through anyway? Round 2, 3, 4, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, grand finale, like all of the losers bracket. Kill me. Don't fear, don't shed a tear, 'cause I'll be your one-up girl. So I jump up super high, high up in the sky. There's no power up like dancing. 128 fighters came in, and 64 went to the Nightosphere. But we'll talk about them later. Huh? What about my battle? Like the one I was in? In the tournament? My battle. Hey, Parker made it! Let's check him out! Speaking of Parker, if you want to get in on some of this tourney action, not only will I be hosting a 3rd Spizzlelocke tournament that includes my Gen 5 roster once I finish those games up, we also host a weekly tournament with another original meta called the 3 Musketeers. Every week, Doopy selects 6 Pokemon at random, and the idea is you have to use 3 of these 6 Pokemon on your team, so you have to choose wisely. On not only what the best Pokemon of the 6 are, but perhaps which Musketeers may be a surprise advantage over common picks. However, there's more. In a special channel, you, the participants, can submit ideas for twists for the tournament, with the best idea being the winner. The twist can be anything from monocolor teams, based at total restrictions, wordplay, and more. If either of these tourney concepts pique your interest, or the tight-knit community aspect of joking around and playing games together with an inclusive group of good folks, then join my Discord through the link in the description. I would love to have you. Also, Editor Spizzle's note, we are changing the rules of 3 Musketeers, the most notable one being we're going from 6 to 9 in the weekly pool, so get ready for that one. Out of the 10 OGs who returned to the 1K, there were only 5 left in winners for round 2. Parker squares up against Rue and does another Noodle lead. Rue pivots out of Quandale to Willis, but Noodle's Gyro Ball is taking out Garchomp's non-stop. Interestingly, Rue put Aqua Tail on their Chomp, but the combo of No Stab, Steelix Bulk, and Pasho Berry make it more like a wet flick. Star Platinum hits a no-guard dynamic punch, a dominant strategy in Spizzle 500, but Parker simply explodes, taking both sides out. Rue gives Shenron the business with A-run and then tries to roost and D-dance to a runaway, but Parker uses Snonic's Ice Beam to discharge. Snonic handles most of Inosuke and Jack finishes it off. From there, Parker's lead and Squidward's bulk was too large and Rue simply couldn't keep up, moving Parker to round 3. Next, we got Mindless Electron versus Shrewstorm. Electron leads Pollen, but gets blasted by an unorthodox The Ball explosion lead from Shrewstorm. Blossom then comes out and gets absolutely destroyed by Star Platinum. It's then Jade versus Nog, with Nog taking the dub under Sun. Shrew keeps shooting Leaf Storms on a sleep-powdered Shenron, but the damage just keeps falling and falling, and Mindless locks in with D-Dance and Waterfall, taking out Nog and the ball thanks to Flinch. An Ice Fang handles Willis, and a Waterfall seals this Shrew's fate to the loser's bracket, sending Electron to round 3. Looking over some cool interactions, in the battle of Gabo Swampert and Zacynthius, we see Janine get some crazy value, and even getting off a baton pass to Squidward, although it wasn't very useful. But ultimately, we even see at the end of the battle Venomoth taking the final blow. Honestly, earned. Now, checking back on Rosie and her new opponent, Dexy Guitarman, and this niche team was certainly having a harder time. I think Rosie is a very good player, as the fact they were even able to make this team function at all kinda proves their prowess as a battler. But I think it could have been tweaked a bit, mainly Ambipom having Rock Smash instead of Low Kick or even Brick Break, as that held Jack back from taking a KO on Noodle not once, but twice, and I feel like that may have been what lost her the battle. However, I can't deny you gotta have some otherworldly aura to bring Taika to a tournament. Fun fact, also the only canon trans Pokemon of the Spizzlelocke. Long story, go watch the video, it's funny. I think Ash Ice Claw was trying to do Paraflinch hacks with Shenron, but it sadly did not work out for them. However, they did clutch up with the niche Herapick to Oko Jonah Hill, which was cool. Balrog also had some tricks up their sleeve with Belly Drum Boon and using Bullet Punch. They were able to clean up most of the remaining threats and finish things off with Shenron. Next up on the chopping block is Pencil Fart versus Narv, two very active memers in the Discord. Pencil takes the lead by doing big damage to Zenyatta and begins to stack D-dances and, oh no, Narv? Narv?
It's okay.
Next up, we have the interesting matchup of Quub Fredka versus V Squared, the one who defeated the Sunkern user versus the guy who may or may not have taken me down in round 1. Please, Fredka, for the love of Arceus, do not lose this one. Fredka goes to Ragnvalder to dodge EQ and do 99% damage to Inosuke, who then finished it off with Mortis after V tried to Endeavor and failed. V then sends out Ditto and they trade burns. Honestly, not a bad play. Mortis is the only ghost type, so may as well try and fight fire with fire. Quv then tries to Seismic Toss and fails. Are you guys okay? Anyway, the Stallfest of Mortis and Ripjaw go down before Fredka ends it with Salsa. After trading a couple Pokemon, Salsa comes back in to take down Pollen and Aaron, and now Squared's Willis is up against a 1v3. However, Snonic was all Fredka needed as they move on to the next round. Now onto Doopy versus Liximu. The leads were pretty standard, with Doopy picking up a KO with Eruption Life, losing Pollen in the early game. Jack sets up Agility Baton Pass and goes to Shenron despite T-Wave already being out on the field. Either through sheer prediction or blind luck though, T-Wave uses Rain Dance and Shenron EQs it into oblivion. Liximu gets his get back though with Star Platinum to execute Jack and Shenron, and then using Salsa to get rid of Willis. And then, the dumbest stall fight in the entire tournament proceeds to go down. Finally, Liximu gets Shenron in, sets some D-dances, and cuts things short, sending Doopy to the loser's bracket. Well, I know who's not getting the prize money. For a much more offensive battle, though, we got Josh M&S versus Migzo. Rocks and Sleep are traded, and Josh takes down Law with Pollen. Migzo uses Lucy to block Eruption, and we see the sole Poliwrath of the tournament hit the field, and immediately goes back. Yeah, there are way too many switch-ins, and we are not far enough into the tourney for me to give you turn-by-turn play-by-plays. After multiple turns of just taking damage, Poseidon lands a resisted waterfall, and then goes back in the ball. Excellent work. Poseidon tries its best against Lucy, but paralysis and unlucky miss causes it to fall. And from there, battle was set. Ivy got hit with Toxic, and Snonic was already on low HP. Josh had a stalling Blissey and 2 Mystery Mons for Migzo in the back. And the Salt was kicking in. GG's. You both fought well, but Josh would be moving on to round 3. Ite versus Drew kicks off, and despite Star Platinum's best efforts, Ite's Inosuke clings to Sash and goes to intimidate Shenron. who ditches the Dragon Dance for Lucy and poisons Law before heading back to Shenron. A good save from Drew here, a potential sweep shutdown with Intimidate and Dragon Tail, and then saving himself again using Rest and Sleep Talk on an incoming T-Wave before going to Ivy, who gets wrecked. Aurora hits the field and Inosuke gets robbed. Shenron comes out and isn't so lucky this time, and... oh. I've heard of mirror matches, but that's kind of crazy. With only a speed boost, Ite lands 2 Stone Edges in a row, picking up a KO each time, and then doing half health to Willis before getting wrecked. Whack-A-Mo versus Send Help, just because of this. Alright, a battle I'm sure many of you were waiting for. Pedro's round 2 fight. This time, he's up against Iggy, taking a KO with Pollen turn 1 and setting a spike before Sonic gets the revenge with Pursuit. If you remember last round, Pedro only showed off 3 Pokemon due to the, unorthodox team he was facing up against. However, not only did Iggy also have some niche selections on their team, so did Pedro. After a few turns, Iggy tries to set D-Dance with Aurora, and Pedro uses Law with Ice Shard to stop it. But Iggy came prepared with extreme speed and took out the Law with little HP to spare, doing most of Snonic's health before falling. After some more turns, Boone takes Snonic, Ripjaw takes Jolteon, Ragnavalder takes Ripjaw, and Snonic takes Ragnavalder. It was now up to Pedro Shenron to clutch the 1v3. He pops off Intimidate and uses Dragon Dance against Ice Punch, outspeeding this turn to set another. Ice Punch takes another big chunk and freezes. But Shenron pulls through and breaks out to KO. But due to Iggy's own Eternal Dragon, Intimidate hits our boosted boy, allowing Iggy to survive Pedro's Ice Fang. And a crit Life Orb Stone Edge finishes the battle, but not before taking itself out as well. Pedro was knocked down to losers, and Iggy moves on to round 3. Seeing Pedro knocked out this early was definitely a surprise, but it leaves us with some excellent questions. First of all, how far can Iggy take this? And secondly, how will Pedro fare in the losers bracket? More on that later though. Leselu versus Charabello had a pretty standard start, but an exhilarating end. Starting with Charabello taking out Aaron with a Noodle EQ, then to my surprise pops a Citrus Berry against Weavile, sets Curse, and then uses both the attack boost and speed drop to seal the deal on a Gyro Ball Oko. Noodle then survives the Dragonite's EQ and one-shots again with Gyro. Charabello switches to Salsa, who gets one-tapped by Shenron. Noodle falls to Spikes, Aurora to Ice Fang, Jolteon lands a Thunder for the 1 HP Shenron, and then after a struggle, Lucy the Blissey secures the victory, which was crazy because I really thought Charabello had this one in the bag. GG, man. The battle of cars that drive and Polygonized was pretty interesting to say the least. From usage of Why Not to substitute Dragon Dance Gyarados and Roar Steelix, some pretty cool interactions were going down. Despite attack being way down, Roserade clings to Sash and one-shots Inosuke, also pretty cool. And in the end, Duck Duck locks Pollen into Leaf Storm with Encore, setting up D-Dance Dragonite. However, Pollen gets a crit and shuts it down. Cars that drive then forfeits. And while it does make sense considering the 2v5, her final Pokemon were a paralyzed half-health Wynot and a Choice Scarf Garchomp with Dragon Claw, Outrage, Stone Edge, and Earthquake. The reason I mentioned this battle is I just wanted to ask if it was possible for Robin Cars to win this fight, as the remaining Pokemon to take down were a 1 HP Roserade, Citrus Berry Bullet Punch Machamp, Leftover Soft Boil Blissey, Banded Ice Shard Weavile, and Salic Berry Garchomp. And although I can maybe see some shenanigans, especially with Why Not to sack and reset Scarf, I don't see Garchomp breaking through the combined forces of Bullet Punch, Banded Ice Shard, and Ice Beam from Blissey, which is like the minimum amount of damage I know Willis would have to tank. So although Robin didn't even see the team, I don't really blame them for throwing in the towel. It's just a reminder to all that it's always worth the time to check and see what your opponent is hiding, especially when teams like this exist. Alright, I'm gonna be honest, we have like a couple more full commentaries this round and a lot more notable interactions, so let's pick things up. Lance versus Eevee Miceycat was some heat, with Lance getting major value on Star Platinum lead. Natural Gift on Gyarados was an interesting play, and seeing Trick Room Slowking and Weezing in one battle was a sight to behold. And it's the first battle so far where I can say Trick Room was actually kind of useful. BaconUltimate and Tractor Man had the most stall of all of round 2, as on turn 6, Tractor Man used Mean Look on Bacon's Lucy, locking her into position. However, Lucy can't actually damage Mortis, and Mortis can't actually damage Lucy. So instead of switching out, Tractor Man decides to try and stall out Blissey and KO it with Will-O-Wisp. To make matters even worse, Lucy got off a Thunder Wave, so it resulted in this beautiful monstrosity you're seeing right now. It was not until turn 43 that Tractor Man decided to switch out, and keep in mind, there are still 11 Pokemon at play this match. So I'm going to go get some water and just let you see how many turns this racks up. "59 turns. Yep, moving on. JustMichaelangelo versus Buildman 2 was some of the craziest hacks I've ever seen. Using D-Dance Shenron to do some damage to Mirror Shenron and then KO Noodle. Doing just 74% damage as to not activate Custat Berry, which would have given Noodle a plus priority turn to Michelangelo's dismay. He then proceeds to KO Aaron and Shenron as Mikey fails to utilize Intimidate to stop the sweep, before finally defeating the beast with Aurora. From there, some classic stuff, and then a speed tie win for Mikey between Banded Garchomps. Then, absolute confusion hacks as Squidward solos Willis, but Mikey turns things around again with a nice Dragonite sweep. ZZZ Marzi and Evil Clarinetist was a very cool fight because of the unique team builds, and I had never seen Ripjaw put in so much value this tourney. GG Triple Z, see you in round 3. Nick Colts vs Toki was cool to see because of Nick's own take on Ambipom. You see, usually Dusclops is supposed to be the shutdown for quite a few normal and fighting types, especially Jack. But Nick gave it both taunt and U-turn to actually Uno reverse the situation and use Ambipom as a Dusclops counter. However, Mortis was still putting in work regardless and Nick took the dub, with a lot of help from Fake Out and U-turn along the way. Vizzy versus Life. Vizzy versus Leaf. Vizzy, you used Why Not to one-shot high jump kick Medicham. You're a goat. Also, insane finisher with the SD sub Garchomp. GG. Leith says they threw turn 1, but I share Vizzy's sentiment, so let's make sure to check on how Leith does in losers. Next we have Landoheimer versus Astral Chaos. Both of these players were exceptional, but Lando has a deep abundance of competitive experience and even runs his own Pokemon meta with a team of his called 35 Pokes. It's slightly like Three Musketeers. You get 35 Pokemon, you gotta make a team and fight. Every month, it's a new 35. I'll put a link in the description to their server, so go check it out. Landoheimer was not only an experienced player, but a well-known figure in my community from the tourney prep arc, as he was making team after team after team, running experiments and helping others by lending his advice. He wasn't the only person doing this, but I just thought I'd mention it because people like that really make this stuff extra special. But yeah, spoiler alert, if you may not be able to tell from the opposing team, Lando wins. There were 3 Soul Rocks and 1 Stantler in this entire tourney, so Astral was not winning the popularity contest with their picks, and although they are a good player, the odds were just too stacked against them. GG Lando. Alright, we have 3 battles left for this round. You good? You sure? Alright, let's do this. Devin versus Nebula. The value Shenron got here was pretty crazy, and the missed Sleep Powder into a freeze turned from misfortune to highway robbery when Devin starts stacking some D-dances and goes to town. And, well, look at who's left. You do the math on who wins. Mikyeet versus Kenny. Immediately, Mikyeet used his signature little Spizzle to OHKO the Pollen lead, and Kenny's Ragnavalder takes down Aaron. Jonah Hill takes down Ragnavalder. Ronaldo takes down Willis. This commentary is reminding me of last tourney. A close combat from Lil Spizzle takes out Jade, and Kenny walls Lil Spizzle to succumb to Toxic, and Jonah Hill cleans up. Finally this round, the battle I saved for last. Muddle Puns versus Benjamin. The king of last tourney versus the comeback kid. I honestly didn't know who to root for, but I was worried C4 may be way out of his league, especially considering C4 has a couple less than orthodox picks. On the flip side, Muddle Puns actually went with a pretty standard meta team, but knowing last tournament, that doesn't mean his movesets would also be. They start off with Sonic versus Shenron. Muddle Puns goes to Quandale and resets Shenron's stats, but also lands Toxic. But not only did Shenron already get Big Ice Fang damage off, he eats a Lumberry and freezes Quandale, allowing Benjamin to set up a free Dragon Dance and KO. Muddle's own Intimidate Shenron comes in and falls for a taunt. Another boost is set on C4's side, and he decides to switch Snakes after taking big damage and goes to Noodle. For reasons unknown, Muddle goes to Life, taking big damage from Stone Edge, and then blasting an overheat into C4's pivoting Ninetales, McCloud. It seems Benjamin is really putting on the pressure. In what I can only presume is a blunder, Muddlepuns hits another overheat into an already flash fire boosted McCloud, who sets Nasty Plot, and another while Muddle switched to Squidward. Strangely enough, C4 uses Fire Blast, but in an even stranger turn of events, Muddle switches back to Life, who gets KO'd. I'm honestly super confused over these last few turns. Why did you switch to Typhlosion on Steelix, knowing it's a rock type, which is super effective into both Pokemon here? Why did you use Overheat twice in a row? Misclick? And then why did you switch to Squidward and back to Life again? My only guess there is maybe Solar Beam, but Sun wasn't set. So final theory is, I don't really know for the Stone Edge situation, but Muddlepuns must have misclicked and then thought he also put Flash Fire on Life, and learned the hard way, he didn't. The returning champ sends out Sonic, hitting Swords Dance while getting brought to Sash with Hidden Power. It's looking dire, but hope shines through when Sonic crits McCloud, taking it down. An Ice Shard from Law takes down Sonic, and it's a 3 against 5. Squeezing out a double D-Dance, Muddle takes out Noodle and Blissey, getting 2 more D-Dances, and paralyzed in the process. Tanking an Ice Shard, he breaks through and KOs Law, turning the tides back into his favor. However, C4's own Shenron outspeeds and KOs, and it's a 2v2, with Muddle having nutrition advantage. Willis hits the field, outspeeds, and outrages, KOing, and C4's last Pokemon, Blaze the Espeon, comes out, setting Substitute. After setting Sub until Willis is confused, Muddle switches to Squidward, where C4 has Blaze set up Substitute and Calm Mind, and it seems Squidward was unable to output enough damage to counter this strat, allowing Blaze to get +4 before Sub was broken, however getting Stealth Rocks removed in the process. He does a measly 6% with Ice Beam before being one-shot, and with Espeon having the higher speed tier, the battle is won, and the champ has fallen. A lot has happened in these past 2 rounds. Crazy sweeps, niche teams, and even some beyond lucky matchups, ending in 96 players knocked out of the winner's bracket. And since it was round 2, this was the first round we would see actual eliminations. While this round was going down, in the background, 32 fighters were silently knocked out of the round 1 losers bracket, going 0-2. There were also only 2 OG fighters left that would be moving on to winners round 3, Benjamin and Parker. Considering Parker was the one to take out C4 in the losers bracket of my last tourney, I was wondering what would happen if these 2 fighters were to encounter each other once again. But let's get back on track here. We have 2 more rounds before the quarterfinals, and I'm sure you want to see the fate of some of these fighters in the losers bracket gauntlet. So stick around until after round 3 to see some of that.
Hurry up! Bitch!
Fiend, 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 oh fiend, fiend. Alright, we made it to 32 fighters, but I mean, that's still like 16 battles, so until we get to the quarterfinals, I will still not be covering every battle in depth, but we are at the point I can at least skim or show a highlight of all battles, so if you made it to round 3 winners and beyond, congrats, you're guaranteed in the video. But back to the fighters themselves. There was certainly a lot of tension in the air, with people discussing their fear of certain threats, and just the fact there were still 2 more whole rounds they had to get through before they could even get to what were considered the more important rounds of the tourney. But that didn't stop people from sharing cool art, making tourney memes, and having a merry old time. In fact, during these rounds, I experienced a boom in my chat on my YouTube streams, and I don't know, I just wanted to mention it because it was nice having a larger crowd than usual. Go check out my streams, they're really fun. Let's keep this trend going and start this round off with Parker's battle against Furret. Parker uses Gyro Ball Noodle Lead to do huge damage to Willis, who sets Rocks and switches to Mortis. After Rocks are set on both sides, it's clear it would be a while before anyone was taken out, so out comes Sonic. Furret goes to Boone and Parker to Shenron. However, Parker gets greedy after taking some hefty damage and tries the D-Dance, and Boone simply Thunder Punches it away. Parker then lands a crit Ice Punch on Jack, one-shotting. He barely survives Fake Out, gets Boone into burn KO range with Ice Punch, and falls. Furret sends out Willis and Parker Squidward. Willis barely hangs on from Rocks, and Okos with EQ. Parker's Willis gets the revenge KO at the cost of most of its HP. Surprise play Ivy comes out, tanks Outrage, eats Citrus, misses Toxic, lands Toxic, and Willis is down. Using Synthesis and Leaf Storm, Noodle also falls, and Parker is backed into a corner. He sends out his last Pokemon, his signature, Jack the Ambipom. Would Fake Out in Last Resort be enough to save this battle? No. Furret took the only ghost type in the meta, so no, the battle was lost. Forfeiting the match, Furret advances to round 4, and another OG was sent to the losers bracket. Next up is Mikyeet versus Quavfredka, and we see Jonah Hill putting up quite a fight against Mortis, who kept walling Lil Spizzle. Thankfully for Mikyeet though, Spizzle got a crit Ice Punch and took the KO. Sadly though, he sacked Lil Bro against Salsa for the switch in. A lot of one-shots are traded. Jonah Hill takes Noodle, Ragnarvalder takes Jonah Hill. Ronaldo takes Ragnvalder. Salsa takes Pollen. Mikyeet's internet takes Mikyeet. Alright. Willis, Salsa. Sonic, Willis. And after a few turns of struggle, Ronaldo, the wall standing tall, blocks Fredka from victory and advances Mikyeet to round 4. Nick Colts handled his next opponent, Kiawa, with relative ease, setting up a Shenron sweep, showing the importance to having reliable Gyarados counters. And Bean officially also advanced to round 4 by taking down SPZFGC. Their fight was pretty standard, but I thought it was funny Bean used Fake Out with Custat Berry activation, and also SPZ had Momento Dusclops, which I thought was pretty neat. Next up is Triple Z Marcy and Dragon Beast MC, and this was the battle of switch-ins. No more than 2 turns went by before someone swapped out. In fact, it wasn't until turn 19 before the first KO. Unfortunately for Marcy though, despite their skill, they had a much more niche team and Dragon went to the next round. Speaking of skill, let's check back on Landoheimer, because I heard they're up against familiar face Vizzy Viz. Pollen is surprisingly winning the ones with the Nosuke, and we're seeing Vizzy's classic Why Not Encore strats to set up D-Dance Aurora. Lando tries to halt the sweep with a burn, but Vizzy came prepared with Lum and one-shots. A cool thing about this battle was there was some live spectator commentary, so I'll put that stuff up as we go. With a crit Ice Shard, Lando disables the sweep and then KOs opposing Sonic with a low kick. Lando then switched it up and began playing defensively, using Squidward and Ronaldo, but then bringing out Zenyatta, who puts in a bit of value, but Duck Duck just takes it out again. Man, Why Not has been tearing Metacham up this tourney. Man, my throat's a little dry. Let me grab some water. I'll let Showdown Chat finish this round up. Let me guess. Lando won? Yeah, alright. Sorry, Viz. Moving on. We got some more highlights to cover. Let's see. Oh, that's 20 turns of stall. Another wheezing player has fallen. I'm sorry, Farlinks. And GG, Lance. After BaconUltimate got a good Shenron sweep, Mikey tried to set Curse Aron, but it didn't quite work out. The Aurora sweep kinda worked though. What caught my eye this battle was Michelangelo just claimed he basically lost at turn 13, but then kept battling, and they ended up getting into a Blissey stall at the end of the match, and they sorta just discussed their fate as they wait down the nutrition clock, which I thought was funny. Michelangelo ended up winning in the end, but I ain't reading all that. Bullrug versus Lucy Gray was interesting because not only did Bullrug use Tailwind with Jonah Hill, which is kind of useless because it's singles, Charizard ended up having a super clutch finale. Jonah Hill comes out and already most players would think it's over. I mean, it's a 2v1 and Blissies are known to heal. And poison. And paralyze. And Seismic Toss, you get the point. Luckily, Jonah Hill lands a few attacks before getting Toxic, and Lucy switches to Life. Fire Blast does big damage considering Toxic, but Air Slash does even more. Life misses Fire Blast, allowing Jonah Hill to KO. Toxic brings him down to 6%, but he outspeeds and KOs Lucy, clutching up the battle. Hell yeah. GG. Josh M&S ends up having a runaway this game, which is pretty rare to see this late on in the tourney, but by dismantling key threats, Lixamu's Rain team stood no match to Swords Dance substitute Garchomp and Soft Boiled Blissey. They almost took it back with Shenron, but I don't think it would have been enough to turn things back in their favor. Lissilu versus Polygonized had a Mirror Pollen lead, and got 3 mirrors of spikes set onto them, and as the game progressed, I really thought it was over for them, as a quarter of your health for every switch-in is really no joke. However, thanks to some good plays, with both Shenron and Aurora hitting themselves in confusion, causing them to be KO'd, Poly turned the match around and Lissilu got stuck with Lucy as their last Pokemon and simply couldn't outstall. The TNT King versus Mindless Electron was a hazard-heavy game with Stealth Rocks on one side and 2 spikes and a T-Spike on the other. Mindless pulls off Sub-Dynamic Punch Star Platinum and thanks to Confusion Rolls does huge damage on Squidward, and after some switch-arounds, KOs Lucy. Middle game here was pretty standard. What I wanted to talk about was the crazy finish of this match. A switch-out predict KOs Willis and Ronaldo hits the field. They trade Yawn and Swords Dance, and Ronaldo gains the upper hand and wins the exchange. TNT King uses Trick on Ronaldo while Lobotomy gets yawned, and gives away his choice specs for leftovers before Ronaldo feints to poison. Shenron comes out and we see a switch to Aurora, and it's looking like a sweep off. Shenron sets D-Dance, but Aurora uses E-Speed, doing big damage, but Shenron claps back with Ice Fang, one-shotting. It's now between boosted Shenron and Lobotomy. They clash Thunder Waves, and Mindless starts to use Waterfall and lands a flinch twice in a row, but TNT King simply uses Slack Off. It was truly a battle of luck and RNG, for who would make the top 16. Sadly for Mindless though, Lobotomy had recovery, while Shenron did not. In fact, had it not been for using Trick on Ronaldo, I would say TNT King would have lost this battle, so congrats to TNT King, and we'll see you in round 4. On to a few more highlights before the final battle of the round. Ite got some usage out of T-Wave during his battle by taking out Shenron and using Explosion on a surprisingly sashed Star Platinum. But besides Devin putting in some work with Jack and getting the upper hand on Willis with Boston, there wasn't much he could do as Ite picked him apart and advanced to the next round. Iggy, the defeater of Pedro, started their battle off with Whack-A-Mo, and they sported pretty cool teams. I just wanted to bring up how I thought it was cool seeing Quandale this far into the tournament, and we got to see a Ripjaw mirror matchup. After a very close battle, Whack-A-Mo pulled through by getting huge Crobat value and eliminated Iggy. Gabo Swampert versus Dexy Guitarman was a battle with even nicher selections though. Gabo leads with his signature Venomoth, who this time baton passed her boost to Shenron. However, Dexy counters this with Roar on Noodle, and after a slugfest, Aurora comes out on top. Dexy goes to T-Wave but gets countered by Scarf Willis, and a boosted Shenron makes a clean sweep through the rest of Dexy Guitarman's team. And for the final battle of the round, we have Pencil Fart versus Benjamin, the final OG and defeater of the returning champ. Last we saw Pencil Fart was in his round 2 match against Narv, and due to circumstance, we didn't actually get to see him fight to his fullest potential. With the record stacked against him, they begin the fight. We see Pencil Fart go for a familiar strategy with Fake Out Last Resort onto Shenron, with C4 seemingly not knowing of this tech and taunting to prevent baton passing. We see a double switch and it's now Sonic and Law. Rocks are set, and we see Ice Punch into McCloud and a missed Fire Blast into Jack. Lucy barely survives the unblockable combo and lands a crucial Thunder Wave, getting some damage off before falling to Last Resort. C4 uses this as an opportunity to set sub and Calm Mind, getting one off at the cost of half health, but one-shotting Jack with Psychic. Pencil uses Outrage Willis to take out Blaze, and C4 says, "Fuck it, I'm not doing this," and uses Explosion Noodle to set things to a shaky 4v3. McCloud takes down Inosuke, but doesn't quite have the damage for Aurora as it dances away. Hits an EQ for the KO and gets taken down by Law Ice Shard. Due to lack of better moves though, C4 has Law use Ice Shard until he is KO'd, and Shenron simply doesn't have enough HP to take things back. Pencil advanced to round 4, and Benjamin is knocked out of the tourney, meaning all original fighters have been eliminated from the winners bracket and were either gone for good or scrambling their way through losers. It now truly was a new gen world. Our top 16 were all sporting fresh new faces, eager to win themselves a spot for cash and glory in the Spizzle 1000. I like pills and Percocet. Yes. I love pills and Percocets. Yes. Let's fall. With the 3 rounds of non-stop battle reffing, I figured you may be getting a little tired, so now's a good time to pause the video, go to the bathroom, or get a new snack. Do what you gotta do. I also wanted to take this time here to ask you to subscribe, as it's completely free, these are my metrics, and I'm a small creator who's all about community, so you're bound to find some value out of getting involved with the gang, or even if you're not into that, you doing things like liking and commenting boost the engagement and send this video to more people to grow that community even further. So it's a win-win for everyone if you just, you know, click that little button or 2 or 3 or 4 for me. Also, speaking of community, thank you to these channel members. Most of you are like gifted subs, but I'm thanking you anyway. Becoming a member to my channel not only gives you many exclusive perks you can check out, but it's cheaper than a McDonald's order, gets your name in 5 of my videos for each month you are a member, and helps fund this channel to keep me going since ad revenue is absolutely atrocious, and pretty much all of the money I get for this channel is from your generous donations. In more interesting shameless self-promotion, I'm trying my hand at a second channel. Basically, this channel, Spizzles, is a Pokemon channel, and my second channel is really anything but Pokemon. I'm mainly going to do documentaries, tier lists, analysis of popular shows, characters, and franchises, and much, much more. It's all on the table. So if you're interested in that, or interested in my entertainment value or whatever, and want to see what I can do outside the confines of Pokemon, I highly recommend you guys to check it out. Wrapping up this intermission, let's talk about what's next, and address the Caparaja in the room. Next round will be Winners Round 4, also known as what the first round of the Spizzle 500 was. We are just now catching up to round 1 of the OG, but also multiple losers bracket rounds have gone by, and due to how these things work, there are way more losers bracket battle rounds than in winners. So how are we handling this? I decided the best way to cover as much valuable information as possible in the shortest amount of time is to do away with both highlights and round by round commentary for the first half of the losers bracket, and instead just cover people's records, who they lost to, and who they beat. Not only for time's sake, but also it would be a little unfair considering most early round replays of losers bracket were lost. So if you just had a cool thing happen to you one battle in losers, sorry pal, you didn't make the cut. Anyway, I've yapped on for long enough. I think we're all nice and recovered and ready to hop back in on the action and see who these final 16 fighters are and what they're capable of. The real battles start now.
Sipping on promethazine, with Lean I fell in love. I can't put down the cup, I can't put down the cup.
Itay, Balrog, Lance, JustMichaelangelo, Dragon Beast, Landoheimer, Bean Officially, Nick Colts, Polygonized, Alolan Trainer Mike, Furret, Pencil Fart, Gabo Swampert, Whack-A-Mo, the TNT King, Josh M&S. All 16 of these trainers have had at least one of their battles showcased and have made their way to this crucial round. It was now time to get serious. Tensions were higher than ever, and you could really see it in these battles. To be sent to the losers bracket now would mean to go through a slog of more battles with other fierce competitors fighting to climb their way to the victory spot. Now that we've made it to the most impactful rounds, I figure we reward these fighters with a display. Much better.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Let's start this round off with Nick Colts versus Bean Officially. Bean leads Ragnavaldr and hits a close combat, with Nick going to Noodle and taking huge damage, and then Shenron. With Ragnavaldr at double defense drop and attack due to Intimidate, Nick Colts predicts a switch and sets D-Dance, but Willis hits the field running, critting out Shenron before it could attempt a sweep. Noodle's back on the field, and Nick uses Explosion to dismantle the Chomp and to what I assume is conserve information against his opponent. He sends out Jack against Inosuke, who gets KO'd by a fake-out low-kick combo. Nick falsely predicts close combat and loses Pollen to Bravebird, and Nick hits another predict on the switch-out, setting Substitute Swords Dance while Boone breaks the sub and switches to Lucy, who gets manhandled. Ragnavaldr uses Quick Attack, doing little damage and also gets KO'd. A very lucky turn combo of crit Fake Out and crit Bullet Punch takes down Willis, and Boone trades blows. A crit Dynamic Punch from Aurora and an unlucky Confusion hit seals her doom. Boone does all the damage he can, but it isn't enough, and Star Platinum takes the KO and knocks Bean Officially out of winners. Nick Colts advances to the quarterfinals. Next, we have Balrog versus Itay, and I know I'm throwing the word signature around a lot, but with what I could call Itay's signature Monty wave, he picks an easy KO against Shenron, which we all know is a huge threat. He then taunts Lucy and goes to Star Platinum, keeping a very strong lead and pressure on Balrog. Dynamic Punch comes out, but Lobotomy's own tempo weakens the effect, and Itay goes to Lucy. A few turns later, Star Platinum OHKOs Balrog's Lucy, and then Itay lands a Toxic on Boone. Balrog makes an insanely risky play. As Itay goes back to T-Wave, Boone uses Belly Drum and maxes its attack, eating a Citrus Berry but taking damage to Toxic. Balrog fires off a Bullet Punch, but it's not enough, and T-Bolt Toxic combo takes down Boone. Half of Balrog's team was down, and Itay hadn't even broken a sweat. It was time to get serious. But before Sonic could do anything, T-Wave used Explosion. Lucy walls Trick, a strategy Balrog used to win last battle, and Itay goes to Star Platinum. Interestingly enough, Balrog doesn't seem to predict this, or at least worry about Itay trying to trade a bad item to Lobotomy, as he goes for it again instead of switching, gaining an Expert Belt in exchange for his choice specs. He then tricks again, gaining leftovers to stay healthy while giving Lucy a useless Expert Belt. Lucy uses Wish Protect strats, and Balrog is going straight for damage. It seems he's desperate at this point, with the lead on him being huge. But perhaps he had a strategy this whole time, as when Lucy got a special defense drop, he switches to Jonah Hill, who lands a Heat Wave, still not doing much. Now both of his final Pokemon were toxic, and Itay still had 5 healthy fighters left. Trying to use Tailwind and Air Slash flinch strats, it simply doesn't put out enough damage as Balrog gets outstalled. And after Jonah Hill fell, he knew Lobotomy would face the same fate, and forfeited the match early, moving Itay to the quarterfinals. Next, let's take a look at the TNT King and his opponent, Josh M&S. We see an immediate switch to Lucy as Pollen drops its special attack using Leaf Storm. Pollen gets paralyzed, sets a T-Spike, Lucy sets Rocks, and Willis comes out. The TNT King clears the spike with Squidward as Josh sets Sub and OHKOs with EQ. Josh tries to substitute for huge damage on Sonic, but decides to switch to Shenron, who taunts an incoming Lobotomy and then gets clapped by Psychic. Josh falls for the bait twice on Leaf Storm, but this time 2 Toxic Spikes are set as Aurora hits the field and busts a move. Though Josh was prepared as he launched a Sleep Powder, but so was TNT King, who ate a Lumberry and crits out Pollen. Law comes out to pick off Aurora with Ice Shard, but breaking through Confuse Roll, E-Speed comes out and plucks it off the field. Scarf Typhlosion hits Hidden Power for the KO, and Willis blocks an incoming Thunder Wave. Sub is set, and then Swords Dance, while Seismic Toss doesn't even break through the sub. Willis then takes out Lobotomy and Jolteon before switching to get away from Sonic and goes to life. Not wanting to let Sonic go down, TNT King goes to his only other option, Lucy, who spams heals against Fire Blasts and hits a Seismic Toss. But thanks to Toxic Spikes, Lucy can only stall so much for so long, still managing to take out life, but at the cost of himself. With a Toxic Weavile at 16%, 2 Pokemon on the field, and one of them being Blissey, game is set, and Josh M&S advances to the quarterfinals. The battle of Furret versus Pencil Fart commences, and we see some huge value in Jack taking down Willis, who only sets rocks, and Mortis providing some trouble for Pencil. We also see Ivy the Tangrowth put in huge work walling out Shenron the D-Dance Sweeper, and then Furret's Jack crit one-shotting 74% damage onto Aurora. Willis gets the get back, and it's looking like a close fight. Ivy comes back out and even outstalls Willis, with a little help of bad confusion rolls for Pencil. Sonic takes it down at the cost of a Toxic and is next walled by Squidward. With 3 tanky Pokemon left to defeat and Pencil only having last resort Ambipom, who was walled by Mortis and Sonic, he knew where the heart of the cards lied and forfeited his match, willingly sending himself to the pits of losers bracket and advancing Furret to the quarterfinals. JustMichaelangelo versus Lance was a nail-biting battle I'm excited to talk about. Rocks and spikes are set, and so is some damage. Lucy comes out, and Lance uses this opportunity to get a very valuable triple spike sub. Star Platinum's out, and Mikey sacrifices Noodle and sends out Aurora to stop the terrifying damage Machamp could do to a triple spiked team. Inosuke takes Aurora, and Shenron comes out. Mikey gets 2 D-Dances up, and Oko's Inosuke. Lobotomy comes out, and Lance sets Trick Room, turning Shenron into the slowest Pokemon on the field. Shenron still takes it out. Pollen comes out, but Mikey goes to Lucy to pluck it off the field, getting afflicted from Poison Point in the scuffle. Willis lands Dragon Claw, but Lucy survives off 1% in Soft Boils. Mikey then goes to Aaron, who tanks a couple Dragon Claws and lands Avalanche, destroying Willis in a single hit. Lance makes his final stand with Choice Scarf Typhlosion and selects Flamethrower. Eruption was also an option, but he has already lost a quarter health, and if he was outsped or didn't one-shot everything, it would mean game over. It's strong enough to take out Aaron, but Garchomp outscarfs and finishes the match, and JustMichaelangelo was sent to the quarterfinals. Let's do a couple highlights here, and we'll finish round 4 off with a bang. Gabo Swampert versus Whack-A-Mole begins, and Whack-A-Mole uses Taunt to stop Janine from hitting her Sleep Powder antics. Willis comes out, almost gets one shot by Ice-type Hidden Power, and then eats a Salic Berry to raise speed. Whack-A-Mole predicts Ice Shard from Inosuke and goes to Mortis. He burns Squidward, almost loses Inosuke, but takes the KO. A few turns later, Janine lands a Sleep Powder, but it doesn't work out due to Lum. After some more mid-game, the battle is set when our boy Gabo sets a D-Dance on Shenron, and, well, we've all heard this one before. I know I said this was a highlight, but I felt bad because every battle of Whack-A-Moles has been shown so far, but they've all been highlights. So I wanted to go in a little more detail this round because I think he played really well. So, yeah. Mikyeet versus Polygonized was a very one-sided match. Underdog Lil Spizzle puts in some serious work, but Star Platinum came in to give Lil Spizzles the Yamcha treatment. We see Willis take down Star Platinum and Noodle, Pollen on Pollen Violence, and Sonic sliding for the homie. Lucy starts hitting Ice Beams while Ronaldo stacks curses and heals away any damage. Once 4 curses were set, Mikyeet goes to work and sweeps the rest of the team, moving himself to the quarterfinals. And finally, I saved a banger for last, Dragon Beast MC versus Landoheimer. We see Lando make an immediate predict and go to Mortis for close combat. Lucy gets rocks up, and Lando sets a T-Spike while Willis comes out. Lando tries to get Inosuke to take down PNG Chomp, but Willis was simply too powerful as it munched on Yachi. After a few turns, it's Squidward Mirror Match, and Lando did this for a reason. Usually people would give their Tentacruel's Clear Body, but Lando went for Liquid Ooze in case of Giga Drain. Lando clears rocks and positions in Zenyatta. Zen Headbutt does big damage, but fearing the confused roll, Lando doesn't risk it, and goes to Ronaldo, then Mortis. Yeah, I'm gonna be real, it was one of those battles, a lot of stall, but it was very intense to watch. Turn 40 is when we finally saw some dominoes fall, with Shenron coming into Zenyatta, taking a wish from Lucy, and setting up 2 D-Dances. Beast then picks up a KO on Ronaldo, Mortis, Zenyatta, Sonic, and finally, Squidward. In a massive upstage, Dragon Beast MC goes on to the quarterfinals, and Landoheimer was barred to losers. No hate to Dragon Beast, of course, but Lando was locked into this tournament, as I talked about earlier, so to see him, of all people, kicked before quarters, it meant these next rounds were gonna be intense. But I think we've given plenty of attention to the winners bracket, and we still have a long way to go. So let's divert our attention away from the main story for a little bit and go on a side quest to see what's going on in the losers bracket gauntlet. From the screen to the ring to the bend to the king. Where's my crown? That's my bling. Always drama when I ring. Throughout this long and grueling tourney, the best have been fighting their way to the top from above as down below. Just because you lost a fight doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to win the tournament. A lot can happen in a Pokemon battle, from unfavorable matchups to misclicks to just plain old RNG. This is where it's all decided though. I like to view loser's bracket as a sort of dungeon, where you drop down after you lose a match and you go through a gauntlet of battles, the people you face being other losers that dropped below in later rounds, or other losers who have worked up the bracket alongside you. I think the first record we should take a look at is my own. After facing an embarrassing defeat in the first round of my own tournament, I was determined to beat the fraud allegations. My goal was to win a single battle, to prove I was not washed. Otherwise, I will have had a 100% losing streak across both of my tourneys, and I couldn't disappoint my viewers. I face against my first opponent, terrified of my possible defeat, but comforted in the fact that they too lost their round 1 game. I come face to face with them and start my match against Airbag? Bro! You know what, man? I respect it. I respect it. Ah, nice. I helped you. I helped you. There you go. Let's see what you can do.
Oh, you're gonna love this.
Okay, I'm waiting. Oh my god, you lived?
I didn't even. He has a stack. 10% special defense so high. What the hell? I did not know about it.
That's so funny. Alright.
Oh no, I outspeed.
True. Oh shit. Okay. Fair enough. I gotta be careful, because what if that was a fake out, bro? What if that was a fake out? You just threw Chingling on there, and then everything else is cracked. Alright, I gotta look out.
Yeah, you gotta look out. You're about to get swept. You just
Yo. Okay, bro. Shit. Bro's got a sun team going on right now. Okay. So fire.
play 1%.
I'm scared of what's coming. Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Except
Okay.
I changed to the Pokemon, to be fair.
Okay. I see the vision.
Because I thought it'd be funny.
I can't almost see. Oh, damn. I just got absolutely washed. Okay.
You
Good work. That was a good one.
Do I survive one? No, I do not.
Who is the last fighter, bro? Ain't no way.
No, I was gonna say not even close, but then it was 1%.
You know what, man? I'll accept it.
No, okay.
GG's.
It was close.
That was good. Yeah, it was close. It was actually like genuinely a little closer than I would have liked it to be for someone who has a Chingling and a Sunkern, but I advanced to the next round. But I guess now's a good time to touch on my team. Of course, you'll see the most common picks with Garchomp, Tentacle, and Mamoswine. I went with a pretty textbook build for Squidward and went with leftovers for extra staying power on Inosuke, as well as teaching it Facade in case of a Will-O-Wisp. However, my Garchomp build, as well as my other 3 Pokemon, were certainly more niche decisions. Let's circle back to Garchomp and talk about my other 3 Pokemon though. Solrock, Typhlosion, and Exeggutor. Nog the Exeggutor was the Pokemon with the least amount of usage on my team, but I felt it was being slept on, as with Heatrock and Sunny Day, not only could I spam powerful solar beams, which considering most leads were either hazard setters weak to grass or pollen, didn't sound like a bad deal. I could also power up my Typhlosion's fire type attacks. Speaking of which, Life. I gave this thing Will-O-Wisp for burn, some coverage moves, and Eruption, which does more damage the more HP you have. Curiously enough though, I gave it Specs instead of Scarf, which may seem ridiculous considering Life's speed tier, but let me cook. I also gave Garchomp an entirely defensive EV spread as opposed to speed or power, which in testing made him save so much HP stacked with Yachi Berry, which was super valuable for a substitute setter. But you may be wondering, how can you afford such a slow Garchomp and Typhlosion with your strategies? Well, my friend, that's where Luna comes in. Holding a Pasho Berry to survive water attacks, Stealth Rock and Explosion for some sauce, and Rock Polish Baton Pass, I was able to use this Pokemon simultaneously as an entry hazard setter, boost passer, and Exploder. It was a really good lead because it was so unpredictable. Will I boost? Will I use Stealth Rocks, switch, or explode? If I do get off a boost, will I pass it or will I use the gain speed to explode and destroy you? Then, when I give it to either Life or Willis, Garchomp is now able to tank insane levels of damage and be able to outspeed most things with the Rock Polish. And I have Swords Dance to seal the deal. It was my strategy to just make Garchomp completely unkillable. And also, Specs Eruption at full HP literally one-shot almost every single Pokemon in the game through my testing, even through Resist, and especially with Rocks up. So yeah, obviously my team wasn't good enough, but I did put a lot of thought into it. My next opponent was much tougher, as I was against JP Sylvie, who you know, didn't have Sunkern, so this would be my chance to actually beat the fraud allegations. I get a great lead as I go for Nog on turn 1, and JP switches out and tries to set Swords Dance, but I outspeed due to my ability Chlorophyll and take an easy first KO. We pivot around, Squidward gets paired in the process, and Stealth Rocks are being set on me. I get Luna the Soul Rock out, get hit with Fake Out, and set Rocks as T-Wave comes out. Rain is set, and I go for Rock Polish. I outspeed Electrode, and now I must switch. Will he use Explosion or Thunder? I risk the Explosion and go to Willis, and they went with Thunder. It was time to attempt my Ultra Chomp sweep. Intimidate sours the attempt, but I set Sub and hit a Swords Dance for the +1. Sub is broken, but I outspeed and go for Outrage, and one-shot Shenron. Fake Out brings me to half health, and I take out T-Wave next turn, getting paralyzed by Static. Then hit with Fake Out, and gaining Confusion. Willis has gone through it this battle. Finally getting nuked by Last Resort, the Willis sweep ended, but we gained valuable ground. After some stall turns, I go to Luna and click Explosion with my middle finger. Sylvie nukes my Nog with the Fake Out and Last Resort combo, and I take out Aurora with 2 Eruptions, using Life. I stay in to waste their final Fake Out, and stall Toxic turns, and sack Squidward for the victory. It was a close battle, but I immediately dropped an announcement claiming victory. 2 wins deep, and I was starting to think I had a real chance to win this thing. I next go against something random, and Nog immediately puts in work by taking down Absol. Wanting to save Nog from KO this early, I go to Squidward, set a T-Spike, predict EQ, and go to Luna with Levitate. Shenron was my biggest weakness, so I had to play it very safely. I set Rock Polish, and they switch to Law. I Baton Pass, go to Willis while they set Rocks, I click Substitute, and they Ice Shard. Stacking non-stab with Yachi Berry in my insane bulk, they do a whopping 20%, and Sub is set with 55% to spare. Fearful of KO, I go straight for the Outrage, taking 2 more Ice Shards and winning the dispute. Looking back though, I really should have gone for the Swords Dance. If I had done that, I think the battle would have gone a lot differently. I go to Luna and Shenron is back out. This thing was going to set D-Dances and sweep me, and I only had one answer, but it was a risky one. I tank a Waterfall with Pasho and explode. It's a 4-on-3, and I sent out Inosuke against Sonic. They do big Ice Punch damage, but we OHKO. Jolteon comes out, and instead of just going for Ice Shard, I greed on EQ and pay the price. I Eruption to melt Jolteon, and their final Pokemon, Willis, is out. And as soon as I saw that sprite hit the field, I knew it was over. They outsped and EQ'd me away, booting me from my own tourney. I may have lost, but I had a lot more fun than last time. Not only playing, but watching all these people have such a good time. I said my GGs, took my 2 whole W's under my belt, and walked. Eesh, I yapped for a while about myself. Let's cover everyone else. Something random went on to get booted by mindless Electron. Electron ended up taking down Emblem and Balrog and advances to losers round 7. Let's cover what happened to our OGs now that we're all down in hell. Poseidon and Egbo went 0-2 and got the boot. Blindsai ended up crawling all the way from rounds 1 through 6 before being defeated by Pencil Fart. Clumsy ended up being defeated round 2 by Cars That Drive, who also took down Charabello, Lucy Gray, and Skelly before TNT King took her down. Moving to round 2, Doopy only defeated Beowulf before VC knocked him out, and Pedro unfortunately came down with a sickness and had to forfeit his match. And then bro got hacked and now he's gone from the server. Round 3, Muddlepuns dropped down and immediately got booted by Earthmolder, and to round 4, Benjamin got mopped by Tractorman, but Parker beat Eevee Miceycat, clapped Tractorman up, and then finally got defeated by Landoheimer. And you all know what happened to me. One more thing to note in this losers bracket is the fill-ins. Since we had way more than 128 people apply, and as we learned from last time, no-shows are inevitable, I assembled an army of fill-in participants with the goal to make sure there was not a single bypass this tournament. I don't think we ever used them for the winners bracket, and they were mainly only brought in for the first few rounds of the losers bracket. Does that put these guys at a disadvantage? Absolutely, but hey, they wanted to play and it was that or nothing. Among these fill-ins was Spizzle 500 participant Limesai, who did not really want to play in the tourney, but no other fill-ins were responding to my pings and the upcoming battle was time sensitive. She asked me to build her a team and I just asked her if she liked any gimmicks, and she told me she loved the move Explosion. So I whipped something together in 20 minutes, explained to her the importance of each member, and let her have at it. She leads with Noodle setting Stealth Rocks, gets Trick Room set on her, and taking heavy damage and burn in the process defeats Mortis. Femcell comes out, and funnily enough, Eric Mont's Trick Room works against him, allowing Noodle to outspeed and OHKO with Explosion. Also, with Dusclops being down this early, Sam was much more confident to explode. It was already down to a 4v4, and an unlucky matchup of Luna and Squidward causes Limesai to lose him on before it could even combust. T-Wave comes out and paralyzes Ivy, and Limesai goes to the Blob. Her plan was to try and build a comfortable enough lead on her opponent, and then spam Explosion and win by just having more Pokemon. However, with Solrock already down and Eric Mont having some tanky Pokemon, it was going to be tough. It was also important to keep the Blob alive considering its defense, coverage moves, and its Choice Band and Stab, allowing it to be the strongest explosion user in the meta. We then see not one, but two missed Thunders. Ivy gets T-Wave low and explodes, doing pitiful damage. The Blob comes out and misses another Blizzard. Finally, a Blizzard connects, but it hits Squidward, and even her opponent recognized the lack of luck, which I understand the inherent risk of using a 70% range accuracy move, but come on. 3 missed attacks between 2 Pokemon in a row? Nog gets KO'd and the Blob finishes things off with a bang, leaving Eric Mont with 2 Pokemon remaining and allowing him to advance. Okay, again, she isn't the best trainer in town, and maybe my team building skills could use some work, but come on, I think she literally would have won if, like, any of her attacks connected, or if Ivy ever stayed paralyzed for any of their turns, but it was just such a bad stroke of luck that you couldn't really come back from it. Whatever, he gets clapped by Iggy next round. After the dust settled, these 8 fighters made it past the round 6 losers bracket. Mindless Electron, Lance, Landoheimer, Ash Ice Claw, Grey Fencer, Pencil Fart, BaconUltimate, and the TNT King. We'll check back on these fighters later though and see how they perform against each other in round 7 and beyond. I think it's time we get back to the winners bracket.
Yes, I am a nerd, bookworm. I'm studious from my cerebral cortex to my gluteus.
Oh, you thought you could escape my yap? Well, with this nifty timestamp you can. Otherwise, pull up a seat because I want to crunch some numbers. We are down to our top 8 fighters, and I've been spitting a lot of things like the only 2 Licky Lickies, the only 2 Hitmonchans, the only Stantler, the only 8 Weezings. You get the idea. But I mean, that's out of 128 players, and there's only 8 left here. So I think now's a good time to update our numbers to see what exactly we're dealing with going into the mid to end game battles of the winners bracket. After compiling and updating my data, we go from this to this. As you can see here, there was one Pokemon that was on every team, Willis. But let's look at some of the other picks. We see the most common runner-up is obviously Shenron, but we actually only see 2 Mamoswines and not a single Weavile left in the tourney. So I'm really wondering how people are going to handle Garchomp besides their own Garchomp. A couple more things I want to note. There were originally 76 different species of Pokemon where at least one of them made it to the tourney, and now there were only 22 across 8 teams of 6. A final thing I'd like to take note of are the underdogs, or Pokemon that there are only 1 of left. There were quite a lot of these guys from the 1 to 3 range when we started out, but since we're going to be seeing a lot of Shenron and Willis and Lucy, I just want to take note of some of these little guys. There is exactly 1 Charizard, Quagsire, Hitmonchan, Tangrowth, Dusclops, Hariyama, Venomoth, Donphan, Typhlosion, Electrode, and Heracross left in the tourney. I think the most eye-catching ones to me are Hitmonchan and Venomoth, since a lot of these other guys had a lot of teams to their name in the beginning, but were kind of weeded out. But these guys, there were only 2 of each the whole way down. So I would definitely say these were the most underrated Pokemon of the tourney, considering how far they came despite their usage rates. Now, time for the meat and potatoes of the tournament to go underway. First, Gabo Swampert versus Josh M&S.
I'm smoking ops in the Honda Civic. I'm smoking ops in the Honda Civic. I'm smoking ops in the
We see Josh shut down Janine, set a T-Spike, and go to life, but Gabo switches to Tentacruel to resist and clear hazards at the same time. We see Janine come back in and put Shenron to sleep. Agility is set, Law comes out, and Gabo passes to Shenron while rocks are set. However, the attack drop was passed as well. Speed Demon Shenron does some damage after a D-Dance, but Thunderbolt forces it off the field to Squidward, who surprisingly super tanks Thunderbolt and Rapid Spins. Keeping the pressure strong with Lucy, Josh shuts down another Agility pass with Seismic Toss. A couple turns later, Gabo sets a D-Dance and takes down Pollen, but Josh gets the revenge KO. With Scarf Ruption Typhlosion, Josh uses his Sleeping Dragon to intimidate Willis and shut down Inosuke's EQ. Gabo gets to set Curse, and Shenron wakes up to taunt. Gabo starts firing off Ice Shards, and thanks to the defense boost, lives a D-Dance powered waterfall, but Josh switches before he can secure the KO. Inosuke does as much damage to a weakened Eruption as he can before falling, but there wasn't much Gabo could do to come back. It was 3 against 5, and Josh simply EQ'd Squidward, and Ice Shard Law cleans up the quad weak Ice duo, moving Josh to the semifinals. Next, Alolan trainer Mike versus Furret. Lil Spizzle comes out, and Well, Lil Spizzle uses Rapid Spin to clear Stealth Rocks and then get hit with Toxic. Willis fires off an EQ and Ivy tanks. Furret stalls turns after landing another Toxic off Jonah Hill. Furret was definitely a more defensive team than most, but this could be their downfall. Landing a greedy Toxic on an immune Pollen, Mikyeet gets the free switch in and hits an Aromatherapy while Furret switches. Now, Toxic across the board was clear. Pollen then gets comboed into Oblivion. Willis goes on an all-out rampage, but in a single turn, Ivy recovers their entire HP bar. Mikyeet goes to Aaron and sets Rock Polish, is brought to 2% by Leaf Storm, does about half health with Head Smash, and faints. Mikyeet goes for an Ice Punch, but Squidward defends Ivy. Furret misses 2 Toxics in a row, as Lil Spizzle gives it everything he has with a double close combat. A third one lands, bringing Squidward to 2%, and surprisingly, instead of attacking, they go for Toxic again and land. Furret stalls turns with Protect and Mortis, and Jonah Hill also gets Toxic stalled, but a light sigh of relief for Mikyeet comes in the form of taking out Squidward. Going to Ronaldo, anticipating the combo wombo, he barely survives and uses Recover. Jack then puts the heals to an end with Taunt. Ronaldo barely lives another attack. After a Stone Edge, they go to Willis, who also gets heavy damage dealt before taking Jack down. Furret continues to stall with Ivy, then they switch to Mortis. Jonah Hill fires off a final flamethrower, doing a disappointing 99% damage, and falling to Poison. Ronaldo recovers and gets taunted. Mortis protects, then gets hit, but lives due to leftovers last turn, and Ronaldo is hit with Toxic. Furret then switches to Boone and activates Flame Orb, popping off a Fake Out and landing close combat on Ronaldo. Willis cleans up Mortis, and locked into Outrage, gets stalled and KO'd. Lil Spizzle makes his final stand, but Ivy was simply an immovable object, and Hitmonchan is not known to be an unstoppable force. A Fake Out from Boone decides the battle, Lil Spizzle succumbs to Poison, and Furret goes on to the semifinals. Next is Nick Colts versus Dragon Beast MC. Nick hits a Fake Out U-turn as Dragon sets up Hera Flame Orb. Star Platinum comes out to be Oko by close combat. Wanting to avoid another combo wombo, Shenron comes out in the mirror match. Nick gets taunted and does huge damage to Dragon Star Platinum before falling to Bullet Punch. Jack takes the revenge KO, taunts Shenron and U-turns to Pollen. Big damage is dealt, he lands a stun spore, but Shenron just eats a lum. Nick goes to Noodle, who tanks Outrage, lands Waterfall, and KOs with Stone Edge. A missed Hydro Pump allows Noodle to do huge EQ damage and get Pollen back on the field. Spikes and Stun Spore hit Lucy, and Dragon fires an Ice Beam to take out Pollen. Nick Colts tries to get Willis to handle it, but fails and instead goes to Jack. Fainting to Life Orb, they manage to take out Hera with them. It's a 2-on-3, but both of Nick's Pokemon are low. Dragon's Outrage takes down Willis, and after Noodle survives on just 3%, Nick decides to end things off with a display of fireworks, sending Dragon Beast to the semifinals. Finally, JustMichaelangelo versus Itay. Both sides set Stealth Rocks, and Mikey immediately goes for the explosion, but Itay came prepared with his Focus Sash. Mikey jukes Itay out with Extreme Speed Aurora, shutting down Ice Shard tactics, which Itay called it a speed tie. Yeah, okay. Hidden Power Ice dogs Aurora though, and Mikey goes to Lucy, then Aaron, who gets taunted. He does some damage, then goes to Shenron, who takes big damage from rocks and a crit Dynamic Punch. Mikey loses the Confuse roll and Shenron is down. Willis and Lucy face off, and Willis almost takes it, but so does Lucy with an Ice Beam, and Shenron comes out to dodge EQ. Dragon hits his set when Aaron comes out, who barely survives Waterfall, connects Head Smash, and then falls himself to Star Platinum. They say they're GG's, but in a final gambit, Mikey uses Healing Wish, having Lucy faint and Willis come out at full HP. Dynamic Punch does over half and confuses, and then Garchomp hits herself, ending the battle and sending Itay to the semifinals. Although our legends Lil Spizzle and Janine didn't quite make it, their legacy shines on as a symbol of what the Spizzle tournaments should be. A combination of finding the meta picks in this strange and unbalanced format, and deciding to pick your favorites anyway, too. But enough sentimental jargon, and let's find out who it's all gonna come down to. Yuki, gimme power, 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 ima yobi samase, nanda uchi no mesare yoto, atsuki tachiagare. Alright, we're almost there. Seeing 128 people whittled down to 4 was a little jarring to see in just a couple of weeks, but here we are. Who's getting 150 and who's getting like, I don't know, 10 bucks? A thank you? A toodaloo? Anyway, the brackets were set, and it's Josh M&S versus Furret and Itay versus Dragon Beast. All 4 of these fighters sporting their own strategies and techniques. Josh with a more balanced team between offense and defense, Itay and Dragon Beast with far more hyper-offensive teams, and Furret with a very defensive stall team. Oh, by the way, given the larger size of the tournament, in order to be a bit more fair and so people don't feel cheated when they make it this far and lose to RNG, I decided once you get to semifinals, all battles there and beyond are a best of 3. Let's first take a look at the battle between Itay and Dragon Beast. Their first battle had a pretty slow start, and I would say things get interesting starting at the first KO, where Itay Star Platinum breaks through confusion to KO the mirror match, and Willis takes out Squidward before Dragon Beast trades some health to take down Willis with Hera. Itay Ice Shards Hera, and Itay gains some huge ground, safely switching into a 2% HP T-Wave thanks to Lucy setting rocks, and pulls off an explosion. Although it didn't KO, it did major damage and forced Lucy to switch out. Beast pulled off a wish to give to Shenron, but surprisingly Star Platinum still won the 1v1. Willis then takes out Star Platinum, Shenron comes out, and they both boost. Shenron wins the ones and cleans up. They are now 1-0, and their next battle, in my opinion, is much more interesting. This time Itay does huge damage turn 1 with T-Bolt, but almost faints, so he goes to Shenron. There ends up being a mirror match where Itay scares off Beast's dragon and lands a T-Bolt on Lucy, losing some HP due to Life Orb, but still surviving at 1% to pull off a Life Orb boosted explosion next turn. Inosuke comes out and both sides set rocks. Inosuke takes down Hera, and Itay Shenron pulls off a D-Dance, taking down opposing Shenron and clutching the KO on Star Platinum. From there, the lead was pretty huge, and Itay cleaned up the rest of the battle with Star Platinum, making him our first finalist. Now, let's see who Itay will be facing in the finals. I'll keep the trend going and skip the first KO for this round. As we know, Furret's all about that stall, so his first victim was Josh's Shenron, but with Toxic being such a big part of Furret's strategy, Josh sets Substitute in Swords Dance as Jack comes out and tries to double hit past Sub, but it doesn't work and Willis dominates the 1v1. After Furret used Fake Out to set up Flame Orb, Josh sets another Sub for a defense drop and then Okos with EQ. Setting up a final Sub against Stallmaster Ivy, a missed Leaf Storm gives Josh the prime opportunity to set another Swords Dance to hopefully one-shot Ivy, considering it had Synthesis. However, Willis just couldn't output the damage, and Ivy takes it down. Pollen comes in for the takedown, and Furret tries some offense for a change, setting Swords Dance before noping back to stall because ice is cold. I refuse to narrate any interactions between a Dusclops and Blissey, but Josh, you're bad. What is this? What are you doing? Is this like a double stroke whammy? What's going on? Are you both senile and demented? You have Thunderbolt, bro. Finally. Law almost takes down Willis, but then Squidward comes out. Instead of being normal and doing damage, Furret stays true to the end and needlessly uses Toxic and Protect. Pollen comes out and turns the score to 1-0. Despite Furret asking if they can change leads between battles, only Josh does, this time sending out Law. Some actual stall bullshit goes down for a while, and Josh lands a Sleep Powder on Jack and picks up a free KO. They try and repeat the process, but Lum puts a stop to it. Combination of Stealth Rocks, a T-Spike, and EQ takes down Lucy. Law sets rocks and Shenron tanks close combat from Boone. They run the ones and Boone whips out Thunder Punch, and even a Wakan Berry could not save my boy. Furret tries to mirror match, so they whip out their Willis, and Josh said, "Mine's bigger," and one taps. Ivy takes down Willis, Josh gets another sleep off on Squidward, and after a long exchange of chipping away at each other, Furret forfeits, which is completely understandable. They were pushed into a corner, and even if they could somehow handle the last 2 months with Ivy, Scarf Eruption Typhlosion was in the back, so it really was just a time saver at that point. You both fought well, but Josh M&S advances to the finals. 2 fresh faces will now fight for the $150 prize. They had done well to get here, and were certainly building up the hype in the Discord. After watching these 2 fighters progress through the tourney, overcoming obstacles and making their way up the ranks, it was time to see the final showdown. Disturbing the peace, look into my eyes, now tell me the things you know about behind my back. The 2 final fighters of the winners bracket are here. Josh M&S and Itay. These were the only 2 who had gone 6 consecutive rounds without a loss, including a best of 3 in semis. Now these finalists will go toe-to-toe in the finals. I, along a few other people, were there to spectate, and man, these were some close fights, but only one of them could keep their streak up. The battle begins with Pollen versus T-Wave. Itay gets a taunt off and then gets nuked by Leaf Storm. Itay sends out Willis and hits Swords Dance, while Josh lessens the effects with Shenron's Intimidate. Outrage connects and Oko's Regardless. Josh tries to Ice Shard with Law, but thanks to Yachiberry, Itay's Willis survives the blows and picks up another KO. And then we see a double switch into Pollen and Star Platinum. Josh puts down SP with an SP and sets a Toxic Spike on Willis. It seemed it was Pollen's end when EQ connects, but he survives off Sash and counter attacks. Josh saves Pollen from Shenron and brings out Lucy, and Ite goes to a sleeping Star Platinum. Josh uses this opportunity to set a final T-Spike and go to life. Ite goes for the Bullet Punch on Wake Up to nerf Eruption damage and then KO next turn with Stone Edge. Josh finally sends out a Willis of his own and after failing to set sub, takes down Star Platinum. Josh and Ite have a reverse interaction from the start of the match, including the Shenron KO. Ite sends out Inosuke, who gets Toxic, but Ice Shards for the dub. Ite sets Rocks, meaning if he can take out Lucy, it's an automatic win. It seems all is lost as Lucy stalls out Inosuke's health with Soft Boiled, but Ite pulls out Endeavor to try and even the odds, but it wasn't enough, and it looks like round 1 is ending with a Blissey battle. Ite sets Toxic on the other side and begins to try and Wish Protect his way to victory, while Josh tries a more offensive approach with Seismic Toss. As Toxic stacked on both sides, Josh switches out to sacrifice Pollen, resetting his Toxic timer and finishing off Ite in the same turn. No diddy. We now go to the next round. Despite being able to change leads, they stick with their choices and Ite loses T-Wave once again. For some reason, after a fake out Willis setup, it's Shenron mirror match and Josh lands a lucky freeze with Ice Fang. Ite hits a D-Dance, Josh taunts, and Ite Okos with Stone Edge. Life Okos in return with Hidden Power, and Ite baits Josh again with an SD Willis in order to get in Lucy, doing big damage to Law while he sets Stealth Rocks. This time around, Ite takes out Law with much more health to spare. However, instead of going for the sweep, in fear of Focus Sash, he returns back to Lucy. After some sleep and heal turns between Pollen and Lucy, Pollen sets a T-Spike on Star Platinum, who does some damage before being put to sleep. Josh brings out Willis, but Star Platinum gets some major value on the beast. Ite goes to Inosuke, but Poison and Garchomp EQ prove to be too much and falls to life, but not before a couple of Ice Shards. Ite takes down Life and gets major value on Lucy with Willis before Lucy takes her down. Star Platinum hits a dynamic Bullet Punch combo to defeat Pollen, but just falls shy of doing enough damage to Willis, leaving this down to Lucy yet again. Taking major damage and poison, Ite takes it down with Ice Beam, and we're back to this again. But this time, Josh is Toxic and only has one Mon, while Ite is only poisoned. Knowing how this will go, Josh forfeits the match. Both players had now experienced their first loss of the tournament, and to each other no less. And we move on to round 3. They start off with the same leads, and I kid you not, they go with the exact same interaction. Bro, just use Explosion. Get some damage. He's going to use Leaf Storm. Anyway, at this point, they were all very well aware of the damage trades and interactions of their teams, so there were a lot of switch-ins. The first KO came in at turn 7, with Ite pulling off a Dragon Dance and crit one-shotting Lucy. Josh gets the revenge with Life, but thinks the battle is all but lost due to losing his Blissey, and I give him some words of encouragement. After some more switch around, Star Platinum takes down Law, and instead of setting hazards, Josh tries to go for a KO with Pollen, which Ite walls out. Josh sets up a D-Dance with Shenron while Ite gets a Wish off on Willis before switching to Inosuke. This did two things. Firstly, it healed his Garchomp. Secondly, baited an Ice Fang, allowing Inosuke to take the hit. However, it missed, allowing Ite to get some chip damage off before he fell. Sleeping Star Platinum comes out, who barely survives Waterfall, wakes up, doesn't flinch, and lands a Stone Edge. That's some crazy luck. Pollen puts SP back to sleep, Lucy comes out, and Josh sets more hazards. However, Josh is now in a predicament, as both Pollen and Life were unable to do meaningful damage to Lucy. Life spams Eruption despite Toxic and Ice Beam damage, and Josh spits some ominous dialogue. Funny thing is, this all comes down to luck. All down to the crits. Nope. It's all gonna be on one turn. Life falls to Poison, and Willis comes out. I think Josh did this on purpose, since Lucy could effectively stall out both his special attackers and Ice Beam away Willis on switch-in. It makes sense if he let his HP-dependent Pokemon fall to Toxic Staller before sending out his ace in the hole. Setting up Swords Dance and popping his Yachi Berry, Josh clicks Outrage, and Ite clicks Protect. One turn.
To sacrifice my own life for Pakistan.
At this moment, it had all clicked for me. Josh had predicted this exact outcome 7 turns ago. A speed tie between two Garchomps. Let's do this! All down to this. Dramatic pause! Josh is the champion of the winner's bracket. But this wasn't going to be his final fight, as in order to win the tournament altogether, he would have to face one more opponent. The two fighters exchange a friendly conversation, and Ite leaves Josh with this. Ite, at the final round possible, has been sent to the loser's bracket, and his only chance of redemption would be to defeat the king of losers.
I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night.
Last time we looked at this loser's bracket, we covered the first 6 rounds and nailed down who would be starting us off for rounds 7 through finals. This time though, we would actually see some battles go down, but honestly, not until round 9. In the battle of Mindless Electron and Lance, Electron took the dub and then another against Alolan trainer Mike. Lando took down Ash Ice Claw as well as Gabo Swampert. Pencilfart met his end to Grey Fencer, who was defeated by incoming JustMichaelangelo. And finally, BaconUltimate takes down TNT King and Nick Colts, sending us all the way to round 9. A lot of familiar faces fell this round, but these 3 fighters in particular either built or were carrying on a pretty solid win streak. Now, despite there being 4 more rounds before loser's bracket ends, there's only 6 fights due to the way the brackets are set, so let's cover them all. Bacon has been climbing their way up since losers round 4, and first faced off against the one who defeated Muddle Puns once and for all. So let's see how they stack up against the likes of a quarter finalist. Bacon immediately displays some wit, utilizing U-turn to pull off and double intimidate into Noodle, who sets rocks. Safe from the possibility of explosion, he sets 2 D-dances as he dodges a Stone Edge, and it's looking like the battle is already won, taking out Noodle and Shenron after a struggle. But Michelangelo uses E-Speed to take back control. Mikey blocks a Toxic with Aaron and sets a Curse, getting hit with EQ, but it doing very little damage thanks to the insane defense in Shuka. He almost takes down Star Platinum, but a Dynamic Punch pulls through and KOs. Not much you can do against a 4x weakness. Setting up a D-dance, Aurora takes down Noodle. Ragnarvalder drops attack and tries to take it down, but it was just shy and falls to Outrage. Mikey then takes out Willis and gets Lucy to 1%, and then they both get into a frustratingly long Blissey stall off. At turn 70, Mikey finds an opening and finishes things off, moving himself to the loser quarterfinals. Mindless Electron and Landoheimer find themselves facing off for the other spot, with Electron taking the first KO using Grass Knot, and from here, it was a lot of switching. Constant back and forth, chipping away at each other, looking for an opening. Honestly, it was fun to watch, but exhausting to narrate. What you gotta know is a crit Zen headbutt through Intimidate, Oko's Electric Shenron, and a Grass Knot takes Lando Squidward. The whole battle was an extremely even and calculated game, ending with Lando losing Ronaldo and using Zenyatta to take down Jade. Electron takes down Mortis with Willis, and a crit Banded Ice Punch decides the battle. Lando moves on to the loser quarterfinals. Now, Lando and Mikey would be facing the semi-finalist losers for a place in the loser semi-finals. You guys get how the bracket works now? I've been over-explaining it, partially because of the hype, but also I was really confused by how this works. So, I hope this has been helpful. Sorry if it's annoying to my more experienced viewers, I swear I'm not dragging out the runtime. It's now time for Dragon Beast versus Landoheimer, and people were definitely crowding around to spectate this one. 2 very skilled players, and to make things even more interesting, these 2 had fought once before. If we remember back to round 4 winners, Lando lost to Dragon and had been crawling his way up ever since. It was time to see if Lando could get his revenge, or if the skill difference between these players was simply too great. Lando changes his lead for the first time in the tourney, showcasing Zenyatta. We see some switch-arounds, an awkward Squidward stall, a Stone Edge miss, and Stealth Rock set. We see a jab here, a jab there. Hazards cleared. Status, chip, all while they shuffle around their teams. The only KO we see for a while being a cheeky Zenyatta KO on Shenron, mainly due to hazards. The battle goes on for a long while, with even the spectators feeling fed up. But you see, there's a reason I'm covering this, because Lando isn't just randomly throwing out Pokemon and switching them back, he is a much more calculated fighter. He's positioning his opponent to right where he wants them, and on turn 45, he was ready to strike. Positioning in Zenyatta, who gets hit with a crit Giga Drain, Lucy comes in, taking the Zen headbutt meant for Squidward. Lucy goes for a wish and falls to the cranium driving. Willis comes out to accept her wish, but a crit Zen headbutt takes her out before it could even be received, wasting the wish, and putting Dragon 2 more Pokemon in the hole. Star Platinum comes out. Boom, down. Hera, boom, out. The crowd is going wild. Squidward, gone. And the final domino, Lucy, falls, sending Lando to the loser semis with a 5-mon sweep. Furret and Michelangelo are facing off now, another pair of skilled trainers. After both sides set rocks and Furret goes for an SD to start, Mikey shuts it down with Explosion. Furret sends out Jack, but Lucy walls him out and takes him down. Boone manhandles Shenron in return. Furret uses Mortis to stall outrage turns, but Aurora rages on, taking down Mortis and Boone. Toxic and confused, Mikey switches out Aurora, and despite a 2v4, really a 2v3, Furret pushes on. Lucy begins to show her stalling might, using Thunderwave to outpace even the combined efforts of Ivy and Squidward. Aaron comes out, and a crit hedge smash nearly takes out Ivy. She hits back with a Leaf Storm, but Aaron holds on too. Ivy is paralyzed, and Aggron misses head smash. It connects next turn, and Furret's remaining Pokemon were disposed of, sending Mikey to the loser semis. It was down to JustMichaelangelo versus Landoheimer, fighting for their place to take on the loser's finalist and have a shot at winning the whole tourney. Their leads trade heavy blows, with Mikey's Aaron pulling through. However, Lando set rocks. Sonic then falls after failing to pick up a KO with Ice Punch, and being walled by Lucy, Lando gains some momentum, setting a T-Spike and putting out Mortis. They do some switching around, and Lando sets up some curses on Ronaldo. Noodle sets Stealth Rocks and explodes. However, it did pitiful damage against the terrifying beast. To make matters worse, Lando uses Recover as Mikey tries to take it out with a D-Dance boosted Outrage. Surprisingly, Ronaldo ends up outstalling Lucy, forcing a switch. He sacks Aaron and gets Shenron in to drop attack, but it wasn't enough and Shenron falls. Overwhelmed with defeat, Mikey throws in the towel and Lando moves on to the loser finals. So, Perdidor, I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you kill me? Double barrel buckshot. Itay had been knocked out during the finale, and this was his final chance to redeem himself. If he could defeat his opponent in a best-of-3 battle, he would be able to rematch Josh. However, since Josh had never lost a round in the tournament, and there would be no more losers battles to be fought after this, Itay would have to defeat Josh in a best-of-3 twice. Meaning, while Josh just had to win the best-of-3 next round, Itay effectively has to win 3 best-of-3s in a row between 2 opponents. And his opponent? Landoheimer, a well-experienced player in several metas, taking down the likes of Dragon Beast, Parker, JustMichaelangelo, and more. It was time to close out this bracket and get to the final act. The tension in the air was thick as they both played a defensive early game and spectators flooded in. Itay makes an impressive play, using Swords Dance and Yachi to take down Inosuke, and Lando returns the sauce by freezing Shenron. Ronaldo comes out and Itay goes to Star Platinum, and Lando was keeping up with a strong defense, putting in work with T-Spike. Lando manages to stall out Willis, but ends up sacrificing Sonic in the process. Itay gets a freeze on Ronaldo, giving huge value, and Zenyatta comes out on a D-Dance. A missed Zen Headbutt seals the support carry's fate, and using impeccable defense in Will-O-Wisp, Lando stalls out Shenron. Inosuke takes Ronaldo, and they proceed to have a long stall off. Lando is impressively keeping up, considering the only healing he's got is Leftovers, Black Sludge, and then Protect and Pain Split on Mortis. But Lucy simply does what she does best, even using Wish to keep her teammates healthy and dealing damage. The battle drags on, and finally at turn 74, Squidward falls, and with 3 Pokemon left, and Lucy with plenty of PP in the tank, Lando fights with honor till the very end and loses the first game. The next game immediately starts, and Itay carries the momentum of last game, getting a cheeky KO on Zenyatta, and using Endeavor Ice Shard to also dismantle Lando's Stealth Rock setting Mamoswine. Sonic takes revenge. We see some pivoting around, and it's Ronaldo versus Willis. They charge their power, Willis going for a second Swords Dance, and Ronaldo recovers. Willis does 75%, Ronaldo pops Citrus and does 48, and Lando sacks Squidward. Sonic then takes down Willis, gets hit by Bullet Punch, lives, and picks up the KO on Star Platinum. Mortis manages to take down T-Wave, and Lucy toxics Mortis and predicts Switch in order to toxic Ronaldo. Itay gets Shenron in, D-Dances, and from there, the outcome is set in stone, and Lando forfeits. Itay wins 2-0 and is sent off to rematch Josh M&S in the grand finale. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he... It was all down to this. Itay successfully crawled back out of the losers bracket, the king of the losers. The battle was about to begin. The rules were simple. If Josh wins the best of 3, he wins the entire tourney. but if Itay wins the best of 3, they have to rematch for another to decide the champion. The odds were certainly stacked against Itay, but Josh's record wasn't perfect. He did suffer a single loss in this tourney to Itay during their winners finale matches. I sent out an announcement, they threw out their Pokemon, and familiar faces flooded into chat like never before, eager to see the month-long culmination of this tournament. The first lead was Josh's Pollen against Itay's Inosuke. They switched to Shenron and T-Wave, and T-Wave gets taunted. Itay predicts a switch and lands Hidden Power Ice on Willis. Life stops T-Wave in his tracks and Josh uses Scarf Eruption to do major damage, but Lucy of course steps in. Josh comes into Toxic Lucy with a Lucy of his own, but Itay goes right to Star Platinum and throws out a critical hit Dynamic Punch, landing on Law, who munches on Citrus. Stealth Rocks are set as Itay goes to Shenron, and interestingly enough, D-Dance was not set, instead throwing a Waterfall into a mirror match. Itay then uses 2 D-Dances as Pollen comes out and connects with a Leaf Storm, failing to KO. Through the resist, Shenron does 70%, but Pollen simply finishes Shenron off. Star Platinum and Law have an exchange, and after some more pivoting around, Itay gets his own Stealth Rocks off and sacrifices a weakened Star Platinum for a safe switch, and to preserve Inosuke. Forcing a switch with Lucy, Itay lands a Toxic. He had not yet KO'd a single Pokemon, and he needed to lock in. Using Protect, the lock-in was successful, and Law falls. Josh Toxics Lucy, but Itay uses Wish and switches out with Natural Cure to Willis. But Josh predicted this and threw out another Toxic. Swords Dance is set, and Josh goes for the Seismic Toss. That and Toxic set a heavy timer on Itay as he goes for Outrage, one-shotting the Pink Egg and following up with a final KO on life before falling to Poison. With the board clear, it was a gamble for these fighters. Itay goes for T-Wave and Josh Pollen. T-Wave picks up an easy KO with another Hidden Power, and Shenron with T-Bolt. And just like that, the tides were back in Itay's favor. With a final Hidden Power Ice, Itay wins round 1, and they go to round 2. While Josh and Itay prepare, the crowd was going wild. For our second round, Josh changes his lead to Law. He sets Stealth Rocks and goes to Pollen, while Itay switches to Shenron for a D-Dance. Considering the outspeed, Itay predicts a switch and sets a second D-Dance, but Josh called the bluff and powered through for the KO. We see Lucy come out for T-Wave, and Thunderbolt Explosion combo was not enough to take it down, although it was close. A Dynamic Punch comes in from Itay's side of the field, and Josh sacks Pollen, and then comes in with Life, who goes for an Eruption KO. Star Platinum powers through, and one-shots with Stone Edge. Maybe if you used a Choice Spec Smish. Willis cleans up Star Platinum, Inosuke comes out, and so Josh goes to Shenron, and a crit Ice Shard does insane damage. Regardless, Josh boldly sets D-Dance, predicting Itay's switch as Willis comes out. A boosted Ice Fang lands, and Willis barely holds on, allowing for another KO. Law picks off Willis, and Josh is back in the lead. Chat discusses the outcome of this battle, and we snap back to see Willis setting SD on Lucy, with Ice Beam not doing nearly enough damage. Itay hopelessly uses Protect, but the monster rages on and takes Lucy down. Inosuke hits the field, and takes it out with Ice Shard. Law comes out, and it's up to Itay to clutch. Well, at least we'll be seeing around 3. Josh keeps his lead as Law, and for the potential final battle of the tourney, Itay finally switches his lead for T-Wave, and we see some interesting back and forth. Josh setting Stealth Rocks and some mirror matching with Shenron. Itay setting D-Dance on Life Switch and blocking Hidden Power Electric with Willis. The first KO happens on lucky turn number 7 with Hidden Power into Shenron, and Itay forces a switch with Willis due to Scarf. Josh mitigates the setback with countering Swords Dance with Intimidate, and then going to Law, who does his best to handle the beast of this tourney, but falls. Pollen hangs on to Sash and gets the revenge KO. Predicting Bullet Punch, Josh goes to life, and Eruption does major damage, but our boy SP takes home the KO. Willis comes out and takes Star Platinum down with ease. We then see some switching around. Willis to Shenron, Inosuke to T-Wave, Shenron to Lucy, and T-Wave to Inosuke, where we see Lucy put in some work, and Itay tries to clap back with his signature Endeavor set, and Josh, potentially flexing, shuts it down with a 1 HP Pollen, who just gets blicked by Ice Shard. The battle is reaching its conclusion, and it was intense. Josh sends out Willis to take an Ice Shard and takes out Inosuke with EQ. T-Wave comes out and lands Hidden Power Ice for the KO. We were really seeing the opposite of how interactions were supposed to go, but I guess that's what happens on the highest level of play. They both go to Lucy, and it's down to Blissey and Gyarados versus Blissey and Electrode. Shenron comes out and sets a D-dance, baiting T-Wave into the Stealth Rocks, and Josh goes back to Lucy to tank Thunderbolt, wearing down T-Wave and their Life Orb. Josh and Itay clash Toxic and both land. We see a few turns of stall here, and spectators were up in arms about the situation. We thought due to matchup, Itay had already won, but at this point it was too close to call. Itay positions in T-Wave and picks up a Wish, and goes back to Lucy, who is freed of Toxic thanks to Natural Cure. Toxic was stacking too greatly for Josh, and they're forced into Shenron, while Itay pops off a Wish. He goes for Toxic as Lucy comes back in. Huge ground is made a couple turns later, with Josh landing a Toxic on T-Wave. They seemed to both be trying to bait each other out, but they were extremely reliant on their Blissies. We see Josh grow tired and try and break through Lucy with Flinch Waterfall, but he gets hit with Toxic. Josh goes for Taunt, but gets blocked. Another Flinch fails, and it's back to Blissey. And chat was, having some feelings about this matchup. But hey, the bright side is no matter who wins, Gyarados, Garchomp, and Blissey will be banned next tournament no matter what. On turn 45 though, something incredible happens. Itay goes to T-Wave and taking big damage, hit Josh with Taunt, forcing a switch into Shenron. This is exactly what they were both waiting for, except in this scenario, Josh was outsped. Knowing Josh could just switch right back to Blissey this turn and wall out his Toxic, Life Orb T-Wave goes for Explosion and takes out Shenron once and for all, which chat was not happy about. In Itay's defense, he needed damage done, and like, why would Josh stay in instead of going right back to Blissey? There's a chance that would have just KO'd and he could have cleaned up with Lucy. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It was the final battle, and it was all down to a Blissey Stallfest. Now, I think I've said quite a lot this tourney, so I think it's time I let the battle and the people who made this tourney possible speak for themselves.
Yeah, I'm rich now. And I might up the switch now. Auto switch now? Hey, I heard that you switched to a bitch now.
Josh claimed victory and was declared winner of the Spizzle 1000. It was all over. The top 8 were announced, and I thanked everyone for their participation. This tournament not only brought great laughs, but forged new friendships, rivalries, shitposts, and even genuine works of art I'll be displaying on screen now. I'm really happy how this all came together, and I only wish I could have gotten it out sooner. And one more thing I'd like to share before you go. Remember, the next tournament is starting soon, and you can be a part of all this. So if you're interested in joining, I'll be posting the final leg of Spizzlelocke Unova shortly after this uploads, where it will contain a list of all legal Pokemon for the next tournament. So don't miss out on it. You might end up enjoying the video and checking out the series. It gets better over time, I promise. But yeah, thanks again for everything, guys. I'm really excited to be dropping this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you found enough entertainment from this, buy me a coffee, become a member, or just leave a thoughtful comment. I do read and reply to pretty much everything. I'll see you next time. Bye.